So it's 6:59, but I'll just say welcome to everyone. Due to the inclement weather this evening, we decided to go with a full virtual council meeting this evening. So thank you very much for the adaptability of staff and for those brave souls who are in council chambers tonight making all the magic happen. Welcome to those who are watching on live stream, to staff, to members of the public, and of course to council members. This meeting is being live streamed, video recorded, and audio recorded, and on the town's YouTube channel, and shall form part of the record, which will be retained in accordance with the town's retention bylaw. And for more information on that bylaw, please contact the clerk's services. And I would ask Councillor Zanella, please, if she could present the land acknowledgement statement.
Mayor Dolan, I don't have my copy with me.
Sorry, I'm struggling with my mute button here this evening. Is there anyone who has a copy of the land acknowledgement statement who would like to offer it? Councillor Saunders.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The town of Innisfil acknowledges that the town of Innisfil is situated on treaty lands that is steeped in rich Indigenous history. The town also acknowledges that this is the land of the traditional territories of the first people of Turtle Island. It is shared between the Anishinaabe peoples of Bow Slave First Nation, Chippewas of Rama First Nation, and Chippewa of Georgina Island First Nation, and we thank them for their generations of stewardship. This meeting place is still the home to many Indigenous people, and as settlers, we are grateful to have this opportunity to work on this land. The town acknowledges the forced sacrifices that are foundation of Canadian society today. We are dedicated to honoring Indigenous history and culture and committed to moving forward in the spirit of reconciliation and respect for all First Nations, Métis, and Inuits.
Thank you very much, Councillor Saunders. So now we'll go to item 2, which is open forum. And I would ask Clerk Marshall if there's anyone signed up to do open forum this evening. It looks like we have a Nikki O'Neill if she's online and would like to turn on her camera and unmute herself. And please feel free whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Mayor Dolan. It looks like Nikki O'Neill has not logged into the meeting at the moment, and we do not have any other open forum submissions at this time.
Okay, thank you, Clerk Marshall. So given that she may be having some technical difficulties, if she does arrive at some point, please let it be known to us, and we'll certainly, with council's concurrence, let her speak at that time. So we do have full quorum, and I would ask then that we go to the approval of the agenda for December the 10th, as was printed and has been on the website since last Thursday. A mover or a seconder, please. That will be moved by Councillor Richardson, seconded by Councillor Zanella. Any agenda repair required before we call the vote? Seeing none, all those in favor? That is carried. Next, I'll ask if there's any members who have a disclosure of pecuniary or conflict of interest on tonight's agenda. I'm not seeing any hands, but if one becomes apparent to you during our discussion, please let it be known to us at that time, and we'll make the necessary declarations and sign the necessary forms. So next we'll go to item 5, which is our presentations and petitions. We have none. Delegations from members of the public and invited guests, and we're pleased to have with us tonight the chair of the board, Chair Garapi, and also Chief John Van Dyke from South Simcoe Police Services. Welcome and thank you for being with us tonight. And whenever you're ready, we're happy to hear from you.
Good evening, Mayor Dolan, and thank you for the introduction, Deputy Fowler and members of council. Thank you for the opportunity to present the board's 2026 operating and capital budgets for the South Simcoe Police Service. After significant deliberation, our budgets were unanimously approved by the Bradford West Gwillimbury Innisfil Police Services Board on November 19th. It is also our understanding that last week the Bradford West Gwillimbury Council has passed the budgets. The proposed operating budget reflects an increase of 11.99%, consistent with trends across municipal police services in Ontario. Rising costs are driven by renewed collective agreements, new compliance requirements enacted by the Community Safety and Policing Act, and a full impact of prior staffing additions. We are a service-based organization relying heavily on human resources to offering police services to our community. In 2026, salaries, benefits, and overtime account for 93% of our operating budget, leaving only 7% for all other expenses. This doesn't leave the board with many discretionary decisions. The budget includes 5 new sworn recruits for part of 2026 and 2 civilian positions to address growing workloads, demands, and ensure that the inspector of policing requirements adequate and effective policing. At the request of the Ministry of the Attorney General and Solicitor General, the budget also includes 3 additional staffing positions to provide enhanced security screening at the Bradford West Gwillimbury Courthouse. These are new costs for the service. These additions are essential as our communities continue to grow and expand. Innisfil's population is projected to grow significantly over the next 25 years, bringing increased calls for service and more serious and complex crime. Calls for service have already jumped rapidly. Serious calls and call complexity continues to increase. We must act now. Our low staffing numbers and our staff workload have contributed to many challenges and resulting resignations. This is certainly not a sustainable trend. Despite these challenges, our service continues to remain one of the most cost efficient in the province, with the low cost per capita. I'm very proud of the dedication and professionalism of the South Simcoe Police Service team, who work tirelessly to deliver high-quality policing and community care. As stewards of public safety and fiscal responsibility, we're committed to ensuring every dollar is invested wisely to protect our growing communities. We hope you recognize this budget is not just an expense, it's an investment in safety, public trust, and the future of Innisfil. Together, we can build a stronger, safer community for generations to come. Thank you. Chief Van Dyke.
Thank you, Chair. I also, off to the side of your screen, you can't see him, but I have Deputy Chief Landry with me as well here today. So thank you to Deputy Landry. Mayor Dolan, Deputy Mayor Fowler, members of council and senior staff. My pleasure to present the operating and capital budgets for the Bradford West Gwillimbury Police Services Board for the South Simcoe Police Service. As you can see from the first slide, the budget presentation is broken up into 5 budget themes: core policing, external pressures, modernization and inflation, staffing for growth, complexity and well-being, and revenue and risk, as well as we will provide additional data to support the budget request that's before you. Next slide, please. Core policing. Core policing in the 2026 budget emphasizes the financial commitments related to personnel, which form the backbone of police service delivery. The proposed increase in salaries and benefits totals approximately $3.31 million, reflecting a combination of factors, included a budgeted salary increase, step increases, full impact of prior hires, and rising benefit costs. These adjustments are necessary to maintain competitive compensation, support employee wellness, comply with contractual entitlements. The budget also accounts for reclassifications and promotions that recognize the experience and contributions of staff. These investments ensure that the South Simcoe Police Service can attract and retain qualified personnel, which we have had issues with, and maintain operational readiness, which we have had issues with, and to deliver adequate and effective policing to the community. The emphasis on salaries and benefits underscores the organization's commitment to its workforce as a critical asset in achieving public safety objectives. Next slide, please. Salaries and benefits. When you spend 93% of your budget on wages and benefits, every 1% in wages has almost an equal impact on the overall budget. There will be at least 43 step increases in 2026. The estimated wage increase will close the gap, but will still leave our officers underpaid compared to our competitor and comparators. We are at the end of a 5-year contract where our members were getting 2% and 1.9% increases, when those who had renewed were getting 4.5%, 4s, and 3.5% cost of living increases. The estimated salary increase closes the gap. But the estimated increase will still leave a first-class constable of the South Simcoe Police Service making less money than a Bradford or Innisfil firefighter in 2026. Benefit costs continue to rise, much like the town. The service has relied on a budget surplus in the past to make up a deficit in benefits. This was done to keep costs down, but is not a proper way of budgeting and needs to be corrected on a go-forward basis. Overtime. Overtime is inevitable in policing. Increased calls, complexity, and major investigations has an impact on the overtime budget. Our investigative units are maxed and we are currently short-staffed in our comm center. So we expect new hires in our comm center and lunch relief will mitigate some of our comms overtime, but there will still be the inevitable overtime in our investigative units. Overall, salaries and benefits and overtime has an 8.59% budget impact. Next slide, please. External pressures. External pressures in the 2026 budget are driven by factors out of the direct control of the service, yet they significantly impact the budget. Additionally, the implementation of NG 911 Phase 2 in October of this year introduces system legacy costs that must be absorbed by the service. On a positive note, NG 911 is a significant upgrade from the old analog system and has a robust design with several redundancies built in. Next slide, please. Legislative impacts and contractual obligations. So you can see an overall budget impact of just over 2%. There's a $60,000 increase to the budget for ESCO, which is Emergency Services Cooperative Ontario. It's our IT consortium that we are part of, that were overlooked in the 2025 budget and needed to be corrected. The annual ESCO annual operating increase is just under $50,000. NG 911 Phase 2. NG 911 is CRTC mandated. We must do it, affecting all 911 call centers in Canada, not just here in South Simcoe. Over $800,000 was spent to upgrade our system, covered by grant funding. And we were just informed yesterday, we received another $323,000 in grant funding to absorb those costs. Court security requirements. This came out of nowhere. Due to recent events elsewhere in the province, the Ministry of the Attorney and Solicitor General are strongly suggesting that we increase our court security presence in the Bradford West Gwillimbury courtroom. This includes armed court security and daily screening of all persons entering and exiting the facility. The $318,000 cost includes 5-day-a-week coverage for one contract armed court security constable and 2 special constable screeners. This includes wages and benefits. And this is not a pressure that is unique to our service alone. We are hiring a part-time constable at a savings of over $30,000 per year when you factor in wages and the no pension requirement because they're already retired collecting pension. Additional financial burdens. Adding South Simcoe Police to the Bradford West Gwillimbury insurance policy saved the taxpayer over $400,000 per year. So that's a big win. We also transitioned to the county's plan in June of this year. However, the county's plan comes with a $10,000 collision deductible, and replacement costs for write-offs are at current value of the vehicle, not replacement value. So we're spending more money to cover collisions, but on a positive note, the overall savings are still significant. Next slide, please. Modernization and inflation. Modernization and inflationary impacts are key considerations for the budget, reflecting the need to invest in technology and manage rising costs. The budget includes allocations for a connected officer program, software licensing and equipment upgrades, such as ammunition and use of force tools. These investments are essential for maintaining operational efficiency, officer safety, and supporting digital transformation initiatives. Inflation has affected the cost of supplies, services, and contracts, necessitating adjustment to budget lines to ensure continuity of operations. Auxiliary clothing and other related expenses have also increased due to extended staffing. By prioritizing modernization, the service aims to leverage technology to improve service delivery, officer safety, and streamline workflows to respond effectively to emerging challenges. Next slide, please. The 2026 budget allocates funds for cell phones, software licenses, and digital upgrades to support digital transformation and efficiency. The cost of supplies, licensing, and contracts require budget adjustments to maintain continuous operations, and you can see budget amounts for each. Ammunition and use of force equipment of over $92,000 was paid for in 2020. In 2025 was paid for out of surplus. And we had to add that line to the 2026 budget. Other pressures such as vehicle maintenance and fuel, our costs are increasing. And we plan to expand our auxiliary unit by 10 members in 2026 with a clothing cost of $26,000. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Rising occurrences. So what's the takeaway from this slide? This is a big increase in our workload. In 2025, we have exceeded monthly occurrence totals in every month since January. And the data that you see before you is to the end of October. By the end of November, we are already at almost 31,000 calls for service. So the estimate at year end of 32,500 calls for service is conservative, and I expect it to be higher. But these are not just numbers. Each one of these calls requires a response. Some calls are shorter, but many are much longer. One occurrence can take days or even weeks to investigate after the fact, from the initial response to the final result. Many calls for service require a 2 or even a 3 officer response. Even a simple motor vehicle collision at a T intersection can tie up officers for an hour with road closures and investigation. Next slide. Responding to change. So what's the takeaway from this slide? The nature of the calls that we are seeing in our communities are changing. A massive marijuana grow operation taken down this year in Bradford, West Gwillimbury was organized crime related. When organized crime moves into your community, so does guns and drugs. So you can see on your screen some of the firearms that we've seized this year. I want to run through a very quick, simple gun seizure scenario for you so that you understand. So those guns were seized from traffic stops. A traffic stop with grounds to search the vehicle, and a loaded handgun is found under the seat or in the glove box. So the first thing that we need to prove is that it's a firearm, which means we have to take that firearm and send it to the Center of Forensic Sciences to be tested. Then wait for the ballistic report. The gun then needs to be tested to see if it was a crime gun used to commit other gun crimes in the community. Then it needs to be traced to determine its origin, and sometimes the serial numbers need to be investigated as they're ground off, and we have to use to bring them up. But we're not done yet. We also need to prove possession of the firearm. The elements of possession are knowledge, consent, and control. Not my gun, officer. I lent my car. I borrowed this car. I rented this car. I gave my car to someone else. I don't know how the gun got there. So we must have the gun fingerprinted, then swabbed for DNA, then back to the Center of Forensic Sciences for analysis. If you get a hit, you must write a DNA warrant to get a sample from the suspect to be compared to the sample found on the gun. This is a ton of work, not just a seized gun. Next slide, please. Staffing. To address the needs of a growing and changing community, the budget proposes strategic staffing enhancements, including the addition of 5 constables and 2 civilians, as well as lunch relief coverage for the communications unit. These roles are critical for maintaining adequate response times and supporting specialized functions. Positions are required to mitigate organizational stressors in our investigative units and help deal with an increase in complex crimes, like the one I just spoke about, but also sex offenses, arsons, which are happening in your community and in Bradford, and other violent crime. And the deputy has been highlighting these stressors on a monthly operations report for the board. A recent meeting with a new hotel in Bradford uncovered that they are already seeing human trafficking. And this past year, we've had to rely on Barrie and York Regional Police to do some forensic work at some of our arsons and other investigations because we didn't have the coverage. And we've had issues staffing our boat the last 2 summers. We were proposing to hire a civilian communications manager and repurpose the senior police officer into a senior officer role. In 1997, we started amalgamation with 5 senior officers, and today we have 4. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. The service has been working hard to increase grant revenue. These provincial grants are not a stable source of long-term funding and are subject to renewal and risk of cancellation. The service has made the assumption that any grant that expires in 26 will be renewed for the 2026-2027 funding year, and this is board supported. So we have been working hard, and we are predicting an increase in our revenue of $486,000, which has a positive impact on the budget of 1.76%. Next slide, please. And again, next slide. So the budget summary. Salaries and benefits make up the bulk of the increase. Costs for fuel and other maintenance have increased from 1% to 2%, and other expenses from 10% to 12%. This has been partially offset by a revenue increase from approximately 4% to approximately 6%. And court security funding is estimated to be down by almost $37,000. So the total gross budget ask for 2026 is $31,400,000 and $35,931. When you factor in net of court security, it's a total net ask of $31,275,385 and change. Next slide, please. So what is this? What's the takeaway here? We are a service-based budget. Salaries and benefits and overtime make up 93% of our budget, and 7% net of revenue make up the rest of our expenses. Next slide, please. The capital budget. Next slide, please. Sorry. So the total capital budget ask for 2026 is $1,901,400.20. The prior estimate for last year was $2,085,878. So we have reduced our capital ask by the amount of $184,478. The costs include a new building location study spread out over 2 years, starting later on in 2026. Our buildings are maxed, and as you're well aware, we are renting space from InPower, but we will run out of space within 5 years. Dispatch console units need replacing. They were new in 2008, so almost 18 years ago, and they are at end of life and need to be replaced. The radio infrastructure cost is to replace aging equipment on our 5 existing tower sites. The connected officer program is a capital cost to purchase 80 cell phones, charging blocks, and protective cases. Most services are there already and have been for a number of years. And this is the start of modernization for frontline service delivery. Vehicle and upfitting includes the cost to replace 5 patrol vehicles, all hybrids, replacing gas-powered with all hybrids, plus an end-of-life pickup truck. The range enhancement cost, we have to do the lead remediation at our range. We're there already digging out the range, so we're going to expand the length of the range to accommodate long gun rifle training, which we currently have to drive to Springwater for out of our community and rent the range at a cost of almost $10,000 per year. Computers are just end-of-life replacement, network storage, annual storage and network replacement upgrades. Same with network switches. And the UPS battery backup. So we have obviously generators in both of our buildings, but we also have battery backup for our comm center consoles. The ESCO capital is our percent of the capital budget and capital reserves. And then we have yearly costs to replace speed measuring device, weapons. We're proposing to buy a 3D scanner for collision and crime scene mapping. This is a huge efficiency because it will clear roadways and crime scenes much, much quicker.
Chief,
And then
I just
your
want to
yearly
say,
cost for body.
sorry, you're at time, so I just want you to try to, because I know you've got
Okay,
some
I'll
really
start to wrap up.
good slides ahead. I want to
Okay.
see the comparative slides.
Thank you. So next slide, attrition. So what's the takeaway here? We've had 57 resignations in the past 5 years. This is not sustainable. These are highly skilled positions. It takes up to a year to recruit, hire, and train a constable, 7-8 months for a dispatcher. And if we lose people from our criminal investigation and traffic unit, these are highly trained positions out the door. Next slide, please. Our authorized strength. What's the takeaway? Our authorized strength is far below our comparator organizations. Our authorized strength numbers are directly attributable to our huge attrition numbers. Our recent employee survey as part of our strat planning process told us lack of staffing and workload is their number one stressor, followed by career growth and inadequate compensation. Time and time again, I hear from members leaving that our staffing levels followed by career growth opportunities are the number one reason why staff leave. Next slide, please. So the BMA study, I'm not sure if everybody knows what the BMA study is. but Innisfil publishes to it. And it's an annual study of comprehensive financial, social, economic comparison of participating municipalities in Ontario. So next slide, please. So what's the takeaway from this slide? The takeaway from this slide is that we have the lowest cost per capita of all municipal police services in the BMA study. Municipalities of a population between 30,000 and 99,000, and lower than one OPP police municipality, which is Orangeville. And we added Barrie as they are a neighbor. And this is your data, not my data. Next slide, please. Again, the takeaway from this slide is same as the previous slide. When you factor in amortization, we have the lowest cost per capita of all municipal police services in the BMA study and lower than one OPP police municipality. Next slide. So what's the takeaway from this slide? We have the lowest net cost per $100,000 of commercial value assessment of all municipal police services in the BMA study and lower than 3 OPP police municipalities. Next slide, please. Again, when you include amortization, you get the same result. Next slide, please. Average household income. So what's the takeaway from this slide? Innisfil has the highest average household income of all municipalities in the 2024 BMA study. Again, municipalities between 30,000 and 99,000 people. Not on this slide, Bradford did not participate in the study, but in 2020, the average household income for Bradford West Gwillimbury was $128,800, according to Census Canada. Next slide, please. So what's the takeaway from this? Bradford West Gwillimbury and Innisfil have among the higher growth rates compared to other municipalities in the BMA study. Bradford's population number came from the 2024 Stats Canada population by census subdivision data, again, because they didn't participate in the BMA study. According to the 2024 BMA study and Stats Canada, both Bradford West Gwillimbury and Innisfil's population have surpassed the 50,000 person mark. Next slide. What's the takeaway from this slide? When compared to the previous slide, both Bradford and Innisfil have grown significantly since 2021. That can be attributed to major growth in the Canadian population, from a population in 2021 of 38.2 million to a 2024 population of 41.2 million. So 3 million in just 3 years. Next slide, please. So what are the key takeaways? Innisfil's policing costs are lower than neighboring or similarly sized municipalities in the study. Innisfil has the highest household income among the comparator municipalities, and Bradford, while they're not part of the BMA dataset, but giving it its proximity and shared policing, we expect its costs and household incomes to be comparable to Innisfil. And it seems that the closer you get to the GTA, the higher average household income. Next slide. So why should this budget be supported? So the budget includes a catch-up wage increase of just over 900,000, and we are resolving our structural benefit, systemic benefit issue to the tune of $527,000. 71,000 was added to mitigate the overtime shortfall that we currently have. We're absorbing the $36,000, almost $37,000 funding decrease in court security from the province. Again, this is a fund of $125 million that has not been increased since 2017. And there's $318,900 to enhance the Bradford West Gwillimbury courthouse security. Staffing for growth and wellness, the addition of 5 officers and 2 civilians. So service enhancements, plus 6 hours a day lunch relief coverage for the comm center so that they can get their lunches. We've included other cost pressures of $92,000 for ammo and $30,000 for insurance deductibles. We have reduced the capital request in the budget by $184,000. We have been doing our work on revenue and have increased our revenue by $486,000. And we have reduced 45 budget lines at a savings of just over $338,000. So we have done the work. Next slide, please. So this is the last slide, and this is, to me, the most important slide of all, and one where I may get a little emotional. As you're well aware, I've spent my whole life policing this community, and our vision for the future is that we are building an organization that is distinctly ours and distinctly yours, standing out among the policing giants that surround us, shining bright where it matters most, serving our communities with courage and compassion, and defining our service through our greatness, through our people and our service. And my ask of you is that we work together to support the vision, because you have a big role to play. Thank you. That includes our presentation for today.
Thank you, Chair Garapi, Chief Van Dyke, and Deputy Chief Landry for that presentation. I'll go to Council now for questions or comments. Deputy Fowler.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a quick question regarding the future budgets that are coming up. There was a significant increase because of the new hires that have happened over the past two budget cycles. What effect will that have on future budgets? Are we reaching the proper level of servicing now with civilian and frontline officers? Where are we standing on that in regards? Do we still have to hire more in the future? Does it look like there's going to be more need for it, or where do we stand in that regard?
So the answer to that is yes, because we're also very much aware that both Bradford and Innisfil are going to grow significantly over the next 25 years and almost double their population. We still have organizational stressors. It's our plan to smooth out our hiring as opposed to doing the big, huge increases that we have done this year and last year in order to smooth out hiring and smooth out the impact on the budget. But yes, more hires in the future are still required.
Follow up if I may.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, so as I recall, for the last few budget cycles, we've hired 16 new employees for the South Simcoe Police Service. What are we looking at in the future? We're looking at, like, every budget cycle, maybe one or two officers, or we're looking at 3 or 4, or we're looking more civilian hires to assist the behind the scenes work. Like, can I get an idea of how that's going to proceed, please? Thank you.
So if Bradford Council has asked for a staffing plan, and with the board's approval, we would like to provide the board and councils with a staffing plan moving forward, which is fully costed. So you will be fully aware of where we need to go for the future. And that obviously depends on us getting proper population numbers from you over the next number of years.
Thank you.
A 5-year plan? Yeah, 4.
Thank you. Other questions or comments from members of council? Councillor Waters.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thanks very much for the presentation. It's our job in council is always to ask some uncomfortable questions sometimes. And the questions that I'm asking are not because I don't think you're doing, I think you guys are doing a great job. I think staff are doing a great job considering the budgets that you're given and everything else. So it comes down to money and tax increases and all that kind of stuff. So my first question is a very, very small budgetary item, but one I'm surprised at is that you mentioned that fuel costs were going up. And I was surprised to hear that because fuel costs over the past year have gone down dramatically with the elimination of the carbon tax. And many organizations have seen their fuel budgets actually decline. So just a quick question in terms of what's the discrepancy? Do you have more cars, or what's the issue with fuel costs going up? Thank you.
Keith?
Thank you. Through Mayor Dolan to Councillor Waters, it's because we cut our fuel budget too aggressively last year, and we are running a deficit in our fuel budget. Because we do have more frontline staff on the road than we did a number of years ago. And, you know, the more patrolling we do in our community, obviously, the more our fuel costs go up. Are we anticipating in the future they will go down or stabilize at least? Absolutely. Because we are adding 5 more hybrids to the fleet next year. One of the issues we had this year as well is the amount of time it took to get them upfitted, because our upfitter decided to go out of business, so we had to find somebody else. And we have found an upfitter in our community, in your community at Sunset Speedway, so we're supporting a local business. But it takes time to upfit 5 new cars when your upfitter has to start their business.
Okay. Well, thanks very much for the explanation. I appreciate that. My next question is around future growth in Innisfil. Like, I understand that, you know, by 2050 that, you know, we're anticipating Innisfil is going to continue to grow, but right now we're really in a slow period of our growth. So do you anticipate next year that, you know, because Innisfil is not growing, that that increases next year will be less than they are this year?
So, you know, are you talking about staffing increases or budget increases?
Budget increases.
So it's my intention not to bring a double-digit budget next year, Councillor Waters. So we have corrected some of our systemic issues that won't be in next year's budget. Also, the court security costs, as you're aware, came out of the blue, and we weren't anticipating that. So you won't see that cost again next year. But we still need to add staff, because you can see our numbers are very, very low, and our workload is going up, 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 and our staff are stressed. So that is something that we do need to fix. So there will be additional staffing asked for 2027, but we are not anticipating at this stage some of the cost pressures that we currently have.
Thank you very much for that. Just a food for thought is that I guess why it's a particularly difficult is that Innisfil makes a 2-year budget. And so we try to anticipate what the cost increase are going to be for the next year. So it would be helpful, I think, for Innisfil is that if the police service could think, I know it's difficult because Bradford doesn't do a 2-year budget, where Innisfil does. It just would make our job much easier when we can better anticipate what those increases will be, because this is quite a bit larger than we had anticipated, what we had budgeted for. And at the same time, just as you have lost funding, we have lost funding as well for our youth programs. And we're dramatically trying to figure out how do we pay for all that. And because they're very important, because it's, you know, they're our youth, we need to be spending money on that. So it's, just food for thought in terms of for the police service board, and the mayor sits on that board, in terms of trying to think of the situation where Innisfil is budgeting 2 years at a time, and having something come in on the second year that we weren't expecting is difficult. It means we have to do a lot of adjusting. So, I would just appreciate that. So again, this is not a reflection upon the service that you guys provide. I certainly do respect all the great work that you do. It just, as being on council, we have taxpayers in the other ear who are yelling at us because our budgets and the staff have miraculously maintained the 5.5% budget increase. So I just wanted to ask those few questions. Again, I appreciate the service and the good work you guys do. I still have that other person yelling in my ear. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Your comments are well taken. We have had a conversation with your CAO. about assisting us with some of our projections going forward 2 years, so that we can provide accurate numbers, but also realizing things happen in policing. And something like the court security costs, we can come up with a 2-year budget and all of a sudden, wham, we get hit with this. That's hard to absorb, that kind of money when you do a 2-year budget. But
Yeah.
your point is very well taken.
Thank you very much.
Anyone else have any comments or questions? So I would just, as Councillor Waters said, full disclosure, myself and Mayor Leduc both sit on the board. The board is going through a strategic planning session right now, and I think long-range financial planning, which happens to be our next delegation, if you wanted to stick around and watch it, is something that will be very helpful to South Simcoe Police to kind of smooth out those bumps and try to see that dip in the road, that's a few years away. But again, much of this is driven by provincial legislation, and the new Community Policing Act has thrown some real curveballs into everything that is done in policing, not just for South Simcoe, but for all police services, including OPP. The issue with MAG, the Minister of the Attorney General, and this money for court security is something, that we aren't going to take lying down, and definitely make our voice heard to let them know that it's their courthouse, and if they expect certain levels of security, that should be their responsibility to pay for it. The other thing that is always been an issue, both with all collective bargaining, but certainly in police associations across the province, is that stepping up, everybody trying to, get a little bit better than the other service, and then the poaching that happens because they can make a bit of more money in another service. So I'm not holding my breath, but certainly we are advocating for provincial-wide bargaining that would see all police officers paid similar, so there'd be less ability for this climbing the ladder in police services, in police associations across Ontario. Anything else? Any final comments from you, Chair, Chief, or any members?
No, thank you very much, Mayor Dolan.
Thank you, Mayor Dolan.
Thank you very much. So I know you mentioned that Bradford did pass the budget. Our recommendation tonight is to receive. We're looking to pass it. We're waiting for the final cost sharing ratio numbers to come out, and we'll be passing our budget hopefully by the middle of January. So we're a little bit behind Bradford, but we appreciate your time tonight, and we certainly appreciate and will receive this delegation with thanks.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much.
Could I please have a mover and a seconder for this? Moved by Deputy Fowler and seconded by Councillor Zanella. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you so much, and have a good rest of your evening. Drive safely.
Thank you.
There'll probably be a busy service tonight with all these snow on the roads. Okay, our next delegation is from Hemson Consulting, and it's regarding our long-range financial plan. And I see Mr. Binning is here, so welcome, Mr. Binning, and whenever you're ready.
Thank you very much, Mayor. It's a pleasure to be with yourself and council this evening. My colleague Christopher Billette is here with me as well, and we're pleased to provide you with sort of an update on the long-range financial plan that we've initiated together with your staff. I'm going to do the first few introductory slides, and if we go to the next slide, What we'd like to do over the next 10 minutes or so is just give you a bit of a context and talk about the key deliverables that will come out of the long range financial plan. I'm going to then pass it over to Christopher, who's really our principal modeler here at Hempson, and he's going to overview with you the methodology and the approach that we use for long range financial planning and touch on some of the things that are built into the model and also the deliverable that we'll be rolling out in the coming months. And then we'll talk about timeline and next steps. So just on the next slide, I just want to overview with you some of the reasons and benefits of doing long range financial planning. It's been my pleasure to have worked with the town for, I have to say, it's 30 plus years. And over that period of time, the town has really established itself quite well financially and embedded in place good policies, good development charge practices, and ensured that it was utilizing the tools to the best of its benefit. The reality is that you're continuing to grow and you've got significant stresses and strains on that. And as well, a number of your assets are starting to approach the end of their useful life. So just like many other municipalities, this is a very challenging time fiscally. So it's very prudent to be undertaking this long range financial plan at this time. The idea here is that we want to help chart out long-term sustainability for the town and create a model and an approach that'll help you measure and manage that over time. We will identify the challenges and opportunities that exist today and where we see them in the future. It will also help you test different policy directives and other sensitivity testing through the way in which Christopher is developing and designing the model. I also like to stress that the long range financial plan is not a substitution for your budgeting process. And I'm really pleased that the town does the 2-year plus planning, but really as a tool to help complement that process and help staff answer some of the questions that I know will come from council about those challenges moving forward and some of the opportunities that will be there as well. So it helps inform decision making. And there's two components to this. And if we just go on to the next slide, I want to talk about the deliverables that'll come out of this process. Typically, with a long range financial plan, we focus on the first two deliverables here. One is an Excel based financial model. That is a model that we're currently developing, Christopher is, and working closely with your staff. That model will be transferred over to the town, to staff, and they'll receive training on it so that they can help update it and utilize it moving forward. The other key deliverable is the report itself. We'll produce a written document that's based upon utilizing the model and will give you a sense as to how we see you today, and then also looking forward based on the inputs and the assumptions that we used that will outline about where we see you moving over the next 10 to 20 years. There's some other key things that have been asked through your proposal documentation. One is a very interesting one, and this is a capital prioritization framework. Once again, we're likely to build it in Excel, and it'll focus on two distinct kinds of things. One is your state of good repair assets, but then also your growth-related infrastructure, which are significant, and help prioritize capital programming because of the fiscal constraints that you're likely to see moving forward. We're also in a process of reviewing your financial policies today, which I've already noted are very strong. But you're going to see moving forward that there's probably the need to revise and update those as you move through the next 5, 10, and longer years. And then finally, we'll do some financial benchmarking and SWOT analysis. It's really important to note that we're actually doing a number of these right now, and typically we do 2 or 3 a year. This year we're doing as many as 6, and we're seeing the same kind of financial challenges popping up in virtually all municipalities, given the tight fiscal tools that are available to municipalities here in Ontario and really across the country. And Christopher's going to touch on a few of those as I pass the mic over to him to outline the model and the approach that we're using. Christopher?
Sounds good. Thank you, Craig. Next slide. So getting right into kind of the model and looking at a little bit of the technical sort of outputs and inputs of the model is structured to allow sensitivity testing over a 10 to 20 year period. That said, there are a number of inputs and high level inputs as well as detailed inputs in order to make this exercise kind of work. We're going to need a development forecast in order to be able to assess the overall costs. The timing of development is important for those overall costs in order to determine assessment growth, DC revenue forecasting, and as well as the drivers of costs. We need to make some assumptions on financial parameters such as debt financing, debt terms, as well as the structure of the town's finances. Importantly, there are a number of forecasts, including the operating forecast, the capital forecast, and as well as our forecast of tax revenue. The main output of the model is the tax levy analysis. And ultimately, what we're trying to do here is we're trying to understand what the tax implications are of undertaking the operating kind of needs, the capital program, in order to assess the impact on residents and businesses in the town, which allows for that structure, allows for sensitivity testing on various factors, changes to the capital program, changes to policies, and so on. Next slide, please. The town is expecting significant growth in the coming years. We already are anticipating that this is a major driver of the outcomes of the long-range financial plan. And sort of like indicated earlier by the chief and the South Simcoe Police, the town is expecting significant growth, well over 100,000 people by the end of 2051. For employment, we're reaching or potentially reaching well over 20,000 new employees. And really, that demand produced by new population is going to be the largest driver of the analysis, particularly on the capital side for your growth-related infrastructure, which we expect that to be a big impact on both your long-term asset management needs and as well as the operating costs. Next slide, please. The model accounts for a set of drivers. Now, these are really the drivers of change. There's three of them: price drivers, volumetric drivers, and as well as what we call induced drivers. The price drivers are really related to market inflation. They're related to overall market trends and how the changes in prices of capital and operating are increasing. And so that includes things like your salary increases or your increases on the non-residential construction price index for capital. The volumetric drivers are really related to incremental costs of new people added to the town and as well as new infrastructure. Ultimately, population growth, like I mentioned, is the main driver of the costs. These drivers are typically used for things like your administrative sort of costs, perhaps some of your minor capital sort of components. The biggest, or at least the biggest drivers in the model are really these capital induced drivers. And these are really related to, as we place new capital in the town, how much in additional operating costs do we have that will impact the overall tax levy, but as well on the other side as well, the long-term life cycle needs of assets. The long-term life cycle needs of assets, as we know, we place new capital. Some of that capital can be funded through development charges, but ultimately the responsibility of those assets comes down to the town, and those need to be funded from other sources, primarily the tax base. Next slide. The kind of the more interesting part, at least the kind of my favorite part of this kind of modeling exercise, is really the capital impacts. Ultimately, this is where we see, to Craig's point, a lot of the exercises that we've been doing over the past kind of couple of years here, where really the challenges are coming down to many of the municipalities that we're working with, and as well as many others here in Ontario. Capital needs have been extensive. We have sort of done preliminary assessments of the town's 10-year capital plan. The capital needs that you have are quite extensive. That said, in order to achieve that capital program, we need to consider several factors. The first one being external funding. How much in external funding do we have available? Things like our CCBF, things like our development charges, which are driven by the market and through your development charge sort of rates. Given that information, we also want to consider transfers to reserves from operating, particularly those funded from the tax base. The town has done an excellent job and is well ahead of the game with your capital infrastructure levy. More and more municipalities have been adopting that type of sort of infrastructure levy approach to kind of fund capital. But that said, the town has been very proactive in that sense. So that will continue to be a primary sort of funding source for capital state of good repair going forward. The last component is debt financing, and we want to consider debt financing in the exercise in order to be able to, or particularly where we don't have enough funding in the immediate term, how can we use debt financing in order to spread those costs over the long term? Now, spreading those costs over the long term isn't free. There is a financing cost associated to that, and there are limits in order to be able to undertake debt for yourselves and for all municipalities in Ontario. So we want to measure what those limits are relative to your 20% debt limit policy in kind of a holistically with all these other components. So what the model can do is we can pull certain levers. If we increase this funding level on, say, your grants, how much could we, kind of hold back on the tax levy? If those grants disappear, how much do we need to increase the tax levy in order to achieve that? Or alternatively, how long can we spread those costs using debt financing, and how can we spread those tax levy increases over a longer sort of time period? Next slide. The capital prioritization exercise does require a collective town effort. So a few key things to consider. The capital prioritization exercise, we are working towards establishing a framework for the town in order to be able to, in general, prioritize infrastructure and perhaps make that capital program a little more feasible over a longer time period. However, in order to do that, there are several factors that need to be considered. The first one, the proposed level of service, particularly in the context of the asset management regulation, OREG 58817, which requires the establishment of infrastructure levels of service. We want to make sure that we're thinking about whether we're able to achieve those proposed levels of service. Asset risk related to mainly your existing infrastructure, and really thinking about the conditions of the infrastructure, thinking about the age of that infrastructure and other factors in order to determine when that infrastructure needs to be looked at or addressed in the capital program. Most importantly, affordability. Is the capital program and the capital that's being proposed affordable over the long term? But ultimately, we also want to make sure that as part of this exercise, a technical exercise, we're thinking about council priorities and any of those strategic projects that also need to be considered as part of the exercise. Two final points to make about the prioritization approach. We want to emphasize that the prioritization approach isn't an exercise for finance to undertake alone. This needs to be a collective town effort with input from expertise across the town in order to be able to come up with a capital program that may be more feasible, perhaps more realistic, affordable, and hitting kind of all those boxes. However, that's not something that can be done in 1 year or perhaps even 2. Coming up with a capital program that meets all the strategic priorities, as well as ensuring affordability and ensuring the long-term sustainability, could take a few years. So what we're doing here is trying to set the framework or set the starting stage in order to be able to do that, and hand over a tool to staff to be able to do that and help inform that over a longer term period. Next slide. The final kind of output of the long-range financial plan exercise is to assess the tax rate impacts. Given our key financial drivers, we're going to be able to calculate long-term tax rate calculations. Typically, what we do is we look at those tax rate calculations from a notional perspective. At the end of the day, this is a high-level theoretical model that will be used to help inform the budget process. To Craig's point, not replace it. However, that said, we can look at that sensitivity testing over a longer time period, even longer than you're already, very good practice of your 2-year budgets. Our model goes out to 20 years. We can look at any number of years up to that point to assess a longer term outlook. Given that information, we're able to benchmark and kind of track and compare municipal comparators around assessment, taxation, debt levels, debt policies, and how they compare to those debt levels, and looking at all those forecasts over a longer time period to see where the gaps and the impacts are. Given that information, we can identify where the challenges are and help inform kind of other factors that we're considering as part of the exercise, particularly the policy side. On the next slide. So really looking at the overall kind of picture, we want to make sure that we understand a few key things as we start the exercise. Innisfil does have some unique challenges and some opportunities as well. This analysis here looks at the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Innisfil has several strengths. You do have low debt levels based on your good fiscal management practices up to this point. You do have an infrastructure capital levy, like I mentioned. You're a leader in that. Yeah, you have that capital infrastructure levy. More municipalities are adopting those, but you've had that for quite a little bit of time. ARS funds are used to support the capital budget, which allows flexibility to respond to changes in funding levels. We first did this exercise many years ago, and Craig much longer than that. And you have been using those ARS funds for a long time for those capital initiatives, which we always thought was a very good practice. You have a strong and diverse growth outlook, particularly in areas like the orbit, which is, that extensive development, but also, quite a diverse amount of development in that area, which will be highly beneficial to the town. That said, there are some weaknesses that we want to make sure we address as part of the exercise. Tax burden does rest largely on residential taxpayers. While you may not have, control over that, in that the assessment base is made up largely of the residential sector, you're not necessarily different to your neighbors in other municipalities of your size. But we want to be cognizant that because they make up the largest share of the tax base, that they would take the largest impact of the overall undertaking of the kind of capital program, operating objectives, and so on. The 10-year capital plan is extensive. Well, at least from our first look, well over $1 billion in capital over a 10-year period needed in order to achieve state of good repair, growth objectives, strategic objectives, and so on. There's also, while the ARS and the kind of the reliance on external funding and using that external funding is good, that reliance can potentially put capital at risk over the long term if there are reductions to that external funding. That said, it's not all bad news. There are opportunities here. Reserves can be optimized to achieve financial objectives, which is what we're going to look at as part of the exercise. Debt can be used as a financing tool to advance critical capital needs. The continued use of the infrastructure levy represents a good opportunity to continue that good asset management work. And as well as the town being strategically located, you have the advantage of having Highway 400 just down the street, and as well as the Innisfil Heights and that employment land development potentially providing additional assessment on the non-residential side. Some threats really related to kind of external factors, and these are factors that are affecting all municipalities. Changing DC legislation is limiting funds available for growth-related capital. We expect that will continue to occur over the coming years. Cost of infrastructure continues to increase from various factors. External factors, tariffs, are with our friends or perhaps former friends down south. Labor shortages, common across Ontario and across Canada, and as well as increasing financing costs, particularly for the infrastructure and capital that municipalities use in order to provide service, and as well as potential risks to kind of OLG revenues, which continues to be a key funding source. That said, there may be opportunities there as that facility kind of evolves in the town over time. Next slide. So in terms of the kind of the policy, just a couple slides here before I conclude. In terms of the policy and what we want to look at, we want to make sure that policy is aligned to those fiscal outcomes. Reserve funds, ensuring that funding is aligned with capital needs. We're going to review those policies to make sure that the capital needs are reflective of where those funding sources are available. Given that, we want to make sure that we look at target balances and contributions for capital needs that are reflective of the asset management plan, the strategic growth in the capital program, and so on, and a review of the capital infrastructure levy as well. On the capital program side, reviewing the magnitude of that capital program along with that kind of framework for capital prioritization, reviewing forecasted budget spending for asset management versus historical spending, what that looks like, and as well as the reliance on external funding. On the debt financing side, making sure that debt financing is used for major capital, especially capital that has town-wide benefits over a longer benefiting period, out to kind of 20 or more years, and ensuring that debt levels are maintained within town policy limits, that 20% of own source revenue being our measure for the town. Next slide. So just to look at the timeline, really we've started kind of the initial data gathering and review with staff. The staff have been excellent in providing the information that's needed in order to initiate the exercise. Hemson is currently really in that initial stages of developing the model, and we're looking at the development forecast and DC revenues and assessment in quite a bit of detail right now. But ultimately, we are moving quite quickly towards looking at the capital prioritization framework and consultations with service area staff. Alongside that, the financial policy kind of review is really related to benchmarking policies with other municipalities, as well as initial benchmarking or data benchmarking on financial indicators. Ultimately, the project we are expected to conclude in and around that May timeframe. We want to bring forward a long-range financial plan report to council in and around that May timeframe for your consideration and approval. That said, given the sensitivities and obviously the timeline with the election, we want to make sure we come around May so that there's perhaps a backdrop or a backup date for council in that June timeframe if that becomes the case. So we've kind of tailored the work plan in order to have kind of that backup for you. Next slide. So some next steps to finalize here, like I mentioned, working away kind of at the development of the model and as well as the review of those fiscal policies. Those two components really come hand in hand. If we want to tailor the model, make sure the model it fits with the fiscal policy framework, but at the same time, we need the model in order to assess any recommendations going forward on the policy side. We're going to be scheduling consultation with staff in the coming weeks, particularly in the new year, and ultimately, as well as developing that capital prioritization framework and then consulting with staff in order to begin that sort of process. That said, I'll leave it there. I'd be happy to answer any questions or comments from council.
Thank you very much, Mr. Benning and Mr. Billette. Before I go to questions and comments from members of council, I'll go to CAO Jershel, please.
Thank you, Mayor Dolan, and thank you, Craig and Christopher, for giving us that excellent, concise overview of this very, very important project. I just wanted to underscore, I guess, 3 concepts that were covered in the presentation because I think they're so important. One of them is that goal of ensuring the long-term financial sustainability of the town. To me, that is one of the most important goals when we look strategically over the long term for the town as an organization. And so this project is really fundamental as a part of that. Secondly, I just want to underscore the points around capital. We often talk about the operating side of our budget, but capital matters too. And what is capital? I mean, we're talking about the infrastructure that serves our residents and our businesses, our roads, our rec centers, our fire halls. That's the infrastructure that we want to ensure will continue to serve us 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years down the road. So the capital sustainability is really important as well. And then the third point I just wanted to put some emphasis on is that this is absolutely about ensuring affordability for our community and ensuring we're making the most efficient use of every dollar that our residents and businesses contribute to the town. They deserve no less than that effort on our part. And these policies and these practices and these models are intended to help us ensure that when we say we need a family's dollar, that we're putting it to the best use in delivering services for the town. So I'm very excited about this project and look forward to having more discussion with council in the coming months.
Thank you, CAO Jershel. Other questions or comments from members of council? I'm going to start with a couple, and then I'll go to you, Alex. So the first thing I want to say is I agree wholeheartedly with Oliver that this is about financial sustainability, which is one of the pillars of our strategic plan, a very important piece of that. But with any model, the output is only as good as the input. So the asset management part that we've developed, and maybe this is putting you on the spot a bit, and maybe it's too early in the process, but comparing to the other, you said you're doing another 5. Like, are you getting good quality input to put in this model?
Christopher, I can start with that. And Mayor Dolan, yes, I mean, Recognizing your size is perhaps smaller than some of the other jurisdictions that we're working with. We're working for example, the Region Appeal, obviously on a completely different scale. Yet at the same time, you have a very good wealth of data. We're fortunate that you've got up-to-date master servicing plans and our work with you on development charges. No, we've got a good inventory of assets. The other fortunate thing is that Christopher does asset management plans for a range of municipalities across the province. So if there are any gaps there, we've got good solid data to fill those in. But so far, we're very pleased with the quantity and quality of data that we're receiving.
Wonderful. So my other, the other big question is about in-services and about our master servicing plan and about, to me, the main, when I think of infrastructure, the big dollars are the pipes in the ground, the water filtration plant, the wastewater treatment plant. Are those included? Is that part of this, or will ours be quite different and unique because we have a municipal services corporation? So none of that maybe will be in our financial plan. So it'll be quite skewed with others.
That's correct. The focus here is on the property tax supported services.
Okay.
However, it is critical when we're looking at things like debt capacity and debt issuances and ARL, we will need to make sure that we're taking into consideration any long-term debt issued through in services because it currently does impact on that. So although it's a focus on property tax supported services, we recognize the importance of the water wastewater infrastructure and also that there's an alignment between the development forecasting and planning for those. So we're integrating it as much as we can, but the focus is on the property tax.
Okay, thank you so much. Councillor Waters.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thanks very much for the presentation. I certainly agree that the goal of long-term planning is really important to the municipality, especially a smaller one like ours, because we haven't got as many levers as a larger municipality has in terms of raising revenue and those types of things. So just a few comments and questions. So my first comment is just to address something that the CAO mentioned, Oliver, about long-term sustainability, and that long-term sustainability is really quite important. That's what this is all about. But my question is, how do you have long-term sustainability when you make 1 and 2 year budgets based on the lowest cost for capital projects? So when we go to get a bid on something, we usually choose the lowest cost. We don't look at the long-term operating costs of what we're purchasing. So when we're talking about, and I guess this may go to Oliver as opposed to our consultants, how do you balance those two in terms between capital costs and operating costs, ensuring that long-term sustainability? Because even though we might build a building that's going to last 100 years, we're looking at the upfront costs and not those long-term costs over the years. How do you balance those two?
CAO Jersha.
Thank you, Mayor Dolan and Councillor Waters. Great question. I think that is something that all municipalities, have to do and want to do better. I think we can all relate to the idea that if you're going to build an arena, you need to think about how much it costs to turn the lights on and having someone there to drive the Zamboni from 1 year to the next. So we absolutely want to ensure that we have that integration of capital planning and operating planning. And, as our consultants said to us, that is actually exactly what the model is intended to do. By having a sophisticated forecast of both the capital projects, that'll help us understand what the operating requirements for those projects will be over the long term, so that when we do bring council a budget, and when we do our budgets with you, we already bring you a 10-year capital forecast. The idea is to have that as integrated as possible. And I think part of this project is to increase the confidence we have that that forecasting is correct.
Okay, thanks very much. So that leads me right into my next question. Is right now, when I have asked over the years, why are we only building a LEED silver building and not a LEED gold or a passive building? And because I'm asking, the costs of operating a building over 100 years are going to outweigh the cost of it. So my question is, does the model allow for staff to quickly make that analysis happen? Because usually what ends up happening is, that's gonna be a different process in terms of how we would do that and that kind of stuff. So I'm hoping this model will, when it comes down to choosing a contractor for a project, that we can say, well, this contractor is, yeah, it's $100,000 more, but the long-term operating costs are going to save us. So I want to know that the model will be able to account quickly, that not something that staff are going to have to spend a lot of time on to make those comparisons happen, so sustainable decisions can be made much more effectively and on a regular basis.
Mr. Billette, can you answer that, or Mr. Penny?
Certainly, I can start. In terms of the life cycle costing of sort of infrastructure, one of the key things to slightly differentiate between the model we're developing and the life cycle cost analysis. The life cycle cost analysis is sort of rooted in kind of the components of the overall cost over the life, the acquisition, the maintenance and operations, and as well as the eventual replacement of that infrastructure. While we account for those costs at a high level, staff do have the ability to provide input into the model given if better information is available. So as an example, in the absence of detailed information for a particular project, the model makes high level assumptions of what those costs are going to be. But if that detailed information is available, we can layer in additional costs, given perhaps some of the tendering costs or anything like that, as part of the exercise to understand what the tax impact is relative to a base case. So we can do that type of exercise. That said, I will caution that this model does not look at a detail of looking at procurement or tendering or any of those kind of considerations when you're going into that sort of level of detail.
Okay, thank you. So basically, the staff would have to run a separate life cycle costing for buildings or capital costs that they're looking at then.
Which
Okay.
which we've done in the past, Councillor Waters. So I remember when we built the Innisfil Recreation Complex, and we decided to spend, I think it was a little over $1 million on the refrigeration system, which took the heat from cooling the ice to heat the pools, things. And then they told us, what the how many years payback it would have to recoup those costs for that. So we've done stuff like that in the past, where we've and same with when we did all the LED lighting in town as well.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it's good to know. It would be much better if it was on a more comprehensive basis as opposed to a single technology that we looked at the entire building and its overall energy use, those types of things. So, but no, it's I just wanted to put that on the radar as an opportunity down the road. My next question has to do with, and it'll be my last question, so we can let other people ask questions, is around externalities of this model in terms of what it can predict. So we have, in the past 4 years, 5 years, we've had a pandemic, we've had Trump and his tariffs, we've had high soaring interest rates. So how does that model accommodate for those types of externalities that we don't know whether they're going to happen? And I would suggest that these types of externalities are going to happen more often just because things seem to be a little more erratic as opposed to the general, business as usual model that we've been running. Thank you.
CEO Jershell.
Thanks, Mayor Dolan. Councillor Waters, that's a great question, and part of why I'm so enthusiastic about this project and the sensitivity analysis in particular. And Craig can add to my comments, but we all know that things happen, and I think being a big part of financial sustainability, from my perspective, is resilience. Whether that's from the impacts of a pandemic, whether that's from the impact of a provincial policy decision that changes our revenue mix, we need to have confidence that we can handle those sorts of challenges when they arise. So the model will let us, understand how much resilience we have. and where our, more important areas of sensitivity are, whether that's on the revenue or expenditure side. So I think we do need to be ready to that. And from my perspective, the modeling is a big part of that. But Craig, maybe you can add to my comments.
Yes, thank you. Through the mayor, the CAO has done a very good job at explaining what I was going to say as well, is that the model that Christopher develops has a very number of flexible tools, and these kind of shocks typically play out in terms of the rate of development and the assessment growth that's associated with that. But it also has tools to reflect how are the financing costs going to change, so that if interest rates pump up, then there's the ability there to quickly change the debenture financing assumptions, the rates of growth, and also, we're working with other municipalities where there's likely a change in service delivery responsibility, and allow you to toggle on or off responsibilities for different services and at different levels to reflect those impacts. It does require you to go in and do that. We're going to have a base case and then the sensitivity testing that can be done with the model to examine some of those shocks as they become known or anticipated can be tested.
Okay, thanks very much. And just as you were speaking there, one last question entered my mind, and that was around when we have a tax rate increase, it's usually because there's a county of Simcoe, there's education, there's a police budget, and the town of Innisfil. So does this look at all of those, or just what Innisfil has control of?
It's really, it focuses on the town services, but that does include the police services board is incorporated in that. We treat that as a town based tax service. Does not look at Simcoe County or the school boards.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Waters. Any other questions or comments for Hampson Consulting today? Seeing none, thank you so much for that presentation. It was very informative. And a mover and a seconder, please, to receive it as information. Moved by Councillor Ices and seconded by Councillor Constantine. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much, gentlemen. We'll now move on to item number 7 on our agenda, which is any boards or commissions that you sit on behalf of Town Council and any updates from them. Councillor Richardson.
On Monday, we had our last library board meeting for the year. We got an update on the renovations and the shelf fundraiser. It's a great holiday gift if anyone is still looking for a gift to have a shelf named after a member of your family. And I also wanted to report that on Friday, November 28th, I attended the DMZ event that had delegations from the DMZ Japan. There was we heard about a dozen different sales pitches, including one for a company that has autonomous operations trucks. It was a great opportunity to chat and meet with other business owners that have gone through our own DMZ program to hear their thoughts about the program. So it was a really great opportunity to meet and chat with our other businesses that are part of the DMZ program that we offer here from Japan. So I really enjoyed that.
Thank you very much, Councillor Richardson. Councillor Ices.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm just reporting on the last meeting that we had at the Nottawasaga Valley Conservation Authority. There was some very good discussion about the proposed amalgamation that the province is recommending, or more than recommending, has a bill to reduce conservation authorities from, I believe it's 36 to 7, and just the impact of that. To give you an idea of the size of that, the conservation authority that we would be placed in, it would be the size of Switzerland. It's going to cover over 80, I believe, around 80 municipalities, and just create it creates a whole lot of questions. And our board put forward a resolution. There's a commenting period on this bill that's coming forward, Bill 68. That commenting period is ending, I believe, December 22nd. This this change is going to take years. We are wanting to ask the province, what are the problems that they're trying to solve with conservation authorities. The NVCA is in a bit of a unique situation, as we had just recently faced an amalgamation question put forward by one of the municipalities to merge with another one. So some of those questions we had already asked at board level, and so we want to continue the dialogue with the province, and hopefully there's still a chance for some more conversation about this drastic change. It will really take away local voices in conservation matters. So I guess we'll watch this topic as it unfolds.
Thank you very much, Councillor Ices. I did actually sit in on a webinar for that was put on by the province, and the fellow who's leading that charge, but I know there's still lots of questions. Councillor Saunders.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We had our last accessibility meeting yesterday, and we all got to gather around and say goodbye to Kim Creamer, and the board actually got together as well for a lunch, and they all met the new council, the clerk, Ann Norris, that's taking over for Kim, and she was really fun to be with yesterday.
Wonderful. Thank you for that. Councillor Waters.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just to mention that we had our last sustainability meeting yesterday for the year, and just to let everyone know that we're still in the gathering information mode in terms of how we can best assist town staff around their community energy plan and a whole variety of different things. So we're really quite pleased with who we have on the committee, and we hopefully will get our feet on the ground coming in the new year. And hopefully we can get some new projects up and running before we come to an end in June prior to the election. So just a quick update.
Thanks, Councillor Waters. Did you want to update on in-services while you're at it?
I was going to leave that to you, because sorry.
I'm happy to do it if you'd like. So
Sure, please.
We had an in-services board meeting, and I had an enterprises board meeting as well, but the in-services board meeting will be coming to there will be a recommendation coming to the shareholder, which is us for rates in the future, so TBD. And also enterprises met as well and also approved their budget for 2026. And that's it for me. I'm not seeing any other hands. So that means we can move on to our, oh, I'm sorry, I did want to mention too that the compensation committee was supposed to have their final report to us by December, by this meeting. Unfortunately, they're still waiting for some information to be gathered, and we're expecting it to come to the second meeting in January, so January 28th. They'll be reporting to us. So thank you. Next, we'll go to the consent agenda. And this is the part of the agenda for anyone watching and who hasn't before. We provide staff recommendations on the agenda. If council are happy with those, we move forward and approve them at the end of the meeting. If we want to pull them to committee of the whole for a more fulsome report, we'll do that as well. So I'll start with minutes, adoption of minutes. So the special council meeting minutes dated November the 19th. The special council meeting minutes dated November 26th. The council meeting minutes dated November the 26th. Then we have reports of various committees. We had the Innisfil Sustainability Advisory Committee meeting of November the 5th. We have the Electoral Engagement Advisory Committee meeting of November 13th. And we had the Traffic Safety Advisory Committee meeting as November 18th. Councillor Zanella and then Councillor Richardson.
Madam Mayor, I don't want to pull it. I just want to say thank you to the committee for helping me get the four-way stop at the 10th line and 25th Side Road. My residents appreciate it. This has been an intersection with a lot of incidents and problems. And I'd also like to thank Deputy Mayor for supporting me on this issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Zanella. Councillor Richardson.
Again, same as Councillor Zanella, I don't need to pull it. I just wanted to actually just say that I appreciate item 6.4 about the ATVs and dirt bikes. I appreciate that there'll be a review. I get quite a few emails and calls regarding dirt bikes and driving around behind Nantire High School. So, and I believe that it was Councillor Drodge that brought that up a little while ago at one of the other TSAC meetings. So I appreciate that it's coming back into more of a review. And also thank you for requesting more info on update about the crosswalk by Webster Park. Again, it's another area that I get a lot of calls about because there is quite a few kids that use it as a bus stop, and it can get quite dangerous. So thank you very much.
Thank you. You know, we really appreciate everybody bringing these things forward, but I just want to also caution that it also has to meet the warrants in order to move forward. So it's great to get these items on the agenda and to examine them, and if they meet the warrants, then we'll definitely act on them. Absolutely. So that is item B3. Item B4 is the Council Compensation Committee. That was their meeting of November 21st. Seeing none, we'll go to staff reports for action. And the first item is the 2026 operating and capital budget update recommendations. Councillor Ices, I assume you want to move that
Yeah,
to
I'd like to
committee
pull
of the
that,
whole.
please. Yep.
Thank you. That will be moved. Then we'll go to item C2, share the love civil marriage ceremonies. I don't see anybody wants to pull it. I just want to say I see more and more if I happen to be in the office on the weekend. It's wonderful to see all these marriages going on, all the happy couples coming out. C3 is the 7th line OPA and CPPS bylaw amendment. Nobody's pulling that one. All right. C4 is 1326 Innisfil Beach Road CPPS bylaw amendment application. Deputy Mayor Fowler.
I'd like to pull that, please.
Thank you. C5, the Young Street Servicing Cost Recovery. Seeing none, then we'll go to item staff reports for information. So the D1, the Electoral Engagement Advisory Committee member resignation. Seeing none, we'll go to bylaws. E1 is a bylaw for its exemption from for a subdivision. I'm not going to read the whole bylaw unless somebody wants me to. You can see it on the screen. Nobody wants to pull that one. Correspondence for action. Innisfil Land Holding Cortel Group asking for an extension for development charges deferral agreement. Seeing none. Then we go to G1, the minutes of the Innisfil Public Library Board from October the 20th. And then we have the motion for which notice has been given. Councillor Drodge. Did you want to pull it, Councillor Drodge? Go ahead and speak to it.
Thanks, Your Worship. Yeah, I didn't want to pull it. This is to align with what LSRCA is already basically suggesting most municipalities to do. Innisfil does a great job already with their roads on trying to limit the salt use, especially closer to the lake. This is more along the lines of commercial parking lots and maybe even some of the town lots we have to see if we can better align with the salt concentrations on those parking lots. So this is basically just supporting LSRCA's original motion.
Thank you. Councillor Waters.
Thank you, Worship. I appreciate us supporting Lake Simcoe Conservation Authority, but I'm still going to have my mini rant around something other than a slow death for Lake Simcoe, which is let's reduce as much salt as we possibly can. I still don't see a no salt solution in terms of trying to find an alternative solution to salt here. It would be nice if they at least acknowledge it when they did the presentation. I asked them about a no salt solution, but it just seems that seems to be where their strategy is just reduce it. And so I'm looking for a more permanent solution as opposed to kicking the can down the road and seeing Lake Simcoe die at 2100 as opposed to 2050. I think there are some other alternatives, pilot projects they could be doing around no salt solutions would be helpful. So that's my rant for today. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Drodge.
Thanks, Worship. Just so you know, Councillor Waters, and I know that you were on the LSRCA for many years. We are constantly looking for other solutions. It's definitely on our forefront. We are trying to lower our salt contributions, but I would argue to say that almost every meeting we're having some sort of strategy come up or looking at a different area. The New Hampshire model is helping with the parking and the legislation needed so that commercial operators doing parking lots can actually have some legislation to back them up. But we are constantly trying to find that solution. We haven't found it yet. I know you're going to argue and say that there are certain places that are doing it, but we haven't found the perfect fit for our area yet. But we are definitely looking into those things. Thank you.
I will make the comment that the New Hampshire model you talk about is still a salt solution. It's a reduced salt solution, and so it would be nice that if you're at least looking into it, it would be in a strategy that the Conservation Authority is putting forward. And I don't see it there. It says yes, they may talk about it, but at least if it was in a strategy as as a mandate for the organization to look at, then they would look at it as opposed to continuing down a single road without looking at something else. So I appreciate the work that they're doing. I'm going to be the last person who criticizes the value of conservation authorities, but I just think there's another avenue they should be looking at, and it would be nice if it was in their strategy as opposed to just saying, oh yeah, we are looking at it. If it's not on paper, it's not being done as far as I'm concerned. So, but anyways, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Councillor Waters. And I will send you a copy of the source protection plan because there are two specific policies for no salt solutions in there. One of them is directed towards the MECP and the other one's directed towards the Ontario Good Roads Association. And I'll just mention to you that when you hit your unmute button the last time you turned your camera off. There you
Yes,
are.
there
You're
you
back
go.
again now. And then the last comment I'll have on this is if you turned on social media the last 2 weeks, you hear the controversy. Why aren't we bare roads? Why don't we have bare roads in our town? There's too much, the roads aren't good enough. There's too much, not enough salt on our roads. We should be using more salt on our roads. So we still have a lot of education to do with people to let them know the difference between salt and pickled sand. And, Barrie does use more salt, but Barrie also isn't an issues contributing area for salt and has extra policies surrounding that. Another one is water softeners that are causing a lot of salt into our wastewater as well. But having said that, we do need to do better. I think we all agree on that. We might not all agree on how fast, but I believe if Director Bowman's on here, I know she's been watching the social media feed as well, and I know she was going to look at a couple of policies coming up, one of them maybe in the spring being a bare road policy. That's not where I think we should be going in with our environment, but it's something we will look at because we certainly have been hearing a lot of it from our residents. I'm not seeing anyone else, so we'll move on. And that is it. So that is the consent list. And so now we'll see the recommendations that we're pulling forward, which are C1 and C4. Can I have a mover and a seconder for that, please? Deputy Fowler and Councillor Drodge, all those in favor? That is carried. And we'll go to Councillor Ices and C1.
Thank you, Worship. I have Councillor Drodge as my seconder to bring this item under discussion. I know budgets are a big topic in the area. As I watch the news and see what other municipalities are doing, I'm very thankful. If I can just start off, that this town does do a 2-year budget, and I think we see a lot of benefits of those hard discussions that we did a year ago on what we felt the town should spend on different areas of the budget. And the town staff has done just a tremendous job in crafting that to get us to this point. We see some areas there's an increase, as we've just heard from the police budget. In other areas, there's been slight decreases from what we projected in our budget. The county was down a little bit. The conservation authorities are down a little bit. So you get this plus minus, and I know staff came with the motion to maintain the 5.5% blended tax increase that we had decided on a year ago for this upcoming year. But I have a slightly different motion, and I'm wondering if Clerk Marshall can bring that up, and I can explain it a little bit more. And because we are not, in my mind, looking to reopen the budget per se, I think the discussion that I wanted to have is on what the increase for the tax levy should be, and we had this discussion a year ago, and using reserves and some of the surplus that we are forecasting for this 2025 year to come up with that. So just looking to see.
I'm sorry to break your stride,
okay,
Councillor Ices. It's my bad. I should have put forward a motion to resolve into committee of the whole, and I didn't do that. So I will do that now. Moved by Councillor Richardson and seconded by Councillor Saunders. All those in favor? That is carried. I'm sorry to interrupt. Please continue. And now perhaps
okay,
clerks can bring up your resolution.
So my amended motion, well, I guess this is where I need a little bit of help from clerks, because that motion that's there is from the staff, and I'm looking to amend that.
So Clerk Marshall, I think he's wanting to put forward his amended motion as opposed to this motion.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Dolan. We just need a seconder to get the main motion on the table first, and then I will share the amendment from Councillor Ices.
Of course, I have Councillor Drodge as a seconder to move this forward.
So we have the main motion, and now we have an amendment.
Apologies, just getting that new slide in here. 1 second.
Sure. So if you wanted to keep talking, Councillor.
Certainly. As I stated earlier, my intention wasn't to bring the budget into the open where we would talk about the service levels and whatnot that we had decided for 2026 a year ago. We had a report a few council meetings ago with a projected surplus from 2025, and that surplus was 1.9 million. And in the staff report around this budget, on table 5 is the main page that I was looking at. I think it's on page 6 of the staff report. It shows the reserve calculations that staff are proposing. I know a year ago we had decided to pull some reserve funding to just help on the affordability that our residents were experiencing. We brought last year's budget increase all the way down to 5.5%. We were quite a bit higher at the start of that conversation. So with that surplus that we're projecting this year, my motion would put that back into 2026 budget instead of it going to reserves, minus the projected increased costs that the 2026 budget is anticipating. In talking with Director Gibson, that would get us to a 4.2% blended property tax increase for this 2026 budget. I know we don't have the final numbers on surplus, but that would be the best estimate that we would have at this point in time, and that's what I'm proposing for council to consider. So the motion is on the screen there. We were at 5.5. I'm suggesting 4.2 based on using the net surplus from 2025.
Thank you. I'm seeing lots of hands. So the motion to amend was by also Councillor Ices and Councillor Drodge. So clerk, help me here. So this discussion now is on the motion is on the amendment only. Is that correct?
Thank you, Mayor Dolan. That is correct.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor Drodge.
Thanks, Your Worship. And just for some clarity to council, so we at the budget cycle at the beginning of last year had $2 million basically pulled out to offset the tax levy, and basically what is come about is roughly $400,000 is still being used for the 2026 budget, and we're returning 1.5 million back into the tax stabilization reserve account. I believe what Councillor Ices is proposing is we do not return that 1.5 million back to the tax stabilization reserve account, and we keep it into our 2026 budget. And by doing that, we would offset the 5.5% tax levy down to 4.2, just for clarification.
Thank you. I just want to check in with Director Gibson if she has anything she wanted to add here, or if you just want to wait until everybody speaks and then comment.
Thank you, Mayor. Why don't I wait until everybody's had a chance and you can address them? Thank you.
Sure. Okay. Thank you. Next is Councillor Waters.
Thank you, Worship. A question to Ms. Gibson. Does the 5.5 include the massive 11% increase of the police budget? And does this 4.2 still include that 11% increase?
Director Gibson.
Through the mayor to the councillor. Yes, so I will sort of address your comments prior to that question as well, Councillor Waters. So I'll just reiterate, and you did state that the $1.9 million forecasted surplus was best known information at the time of that report. So just to caution that, of course, because it is a forecast, will likely change before the end of the year. The disposition of the surplus is completed in the next year in 2026 and includes a transfer to reserves of that surplus. So essentially, yes, you would be had the option to draw from the property tax stabilization reserve where the surplus would be allocated to offset the pressure or offset or bring down the 5.2 to, or sorry, the 5.5 to the 4.2. The current 5.5 increase has done some work, as was noted, to maintain the 5.5% increase that was approved for the 2026 year. That includes two significant drivers, one being the police budget, the difference in the increase there at the 11.99%, and the less than anticipated assessment growth, meaning fewer households to bear the burden of the tax levy. So what I would say is that, again, it is a cautionary comment around that forecast and the likelihood of that changing. And also just to note that the staff has gone back and tried to compromise to keep it that 5.5% and looked at where we do have some forecasted savings in 2025 and where those might continue onward into 2026. Again, cautionary because those things would likely be a one-time either deferral or savings that we would experience in 2026, but we feel comfortable putting those lines forward in order to keep us at the 5.5. Alongside that, we did suggest that there was some additional amount of about $400,000 to be pulled from the property tax stabilization reserve. So really coming at it with a combination of both of those efforts to keep us within the 5.5. As we did just hear from Hempson, the importance of our long-term planning, we do need to be aware and cautious of the fact that reserves help us be resilient as an organization looking longer term. So we need to be very careful with those reserves, as well as that capital levy that we have in place right now that allows us to meet our capital targets as well. So all that to sort of frame the picture around what all of those elements look like together and how they fit with that proposed 5.5.
You're on mute, Counselor.
My dog started barking, so I had to mute her out. So where does the tax stabilization sit if we do not put the $1.9 million into it? Like we like to stay between 5 and 10%. Where does it sit if we don't put the 1.9 in?
I'm sorry, I'm just going to flip over to the table. So it would be at a $3.2 million without the transfer in.
So that would be below our 5%?
No, that still keeps us within our min-max requirement.
Okay, all right, that's good. That's at least good to hear. So I guess where I fall is we spent how much time last year setting a budget up, coming in at 5.5%, and then, which I find amazing that we come to a last minute decision where we're having to ask, without having to be able to do our own research, being asked to switch from 5.5 to 4.2. So I really don't like this being thrown on us last minute. I'd rather defer the whole thing for a better, more clear discussion. My other point I'd like to make is that I'm going to choose my words carefully. That we all know by doing this that it's going to put more pressure on a new council next year when they come in and they have to do a budget because we've artificially reduced the tax increase. Unless you're planning on stealing from reserves year after year, at which at some point in time you're gonna be below that. So I think it's opportunistic. Like I think it's nice to be able to say to the taxpayer, yes, we're going to reduce your taxes this year just before an election next year, but somehow we have to make that up in the following years. So I'm a bit skeptical about it, but like I said, I'm one vote on council, and so waiting to hear what everyone else has to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Drodge.
Thanks, Your Worship. Just for some points of clarification. So I had actually asked what the tax stabilization reserve account, actually, I won't say that. Councillor Ices had asked about the tax stabilization reserve account. Historically, throughout the years, has it had a deficit or a surplus? So just for some numbers here, 2025, 1.9 million, 2024, just shy of $1 million, 2023, just over $1 million. These are all surplus in that account. 2022 is the only year that had a deficit of 148,000. 2021, 300, 20, 75, 19, 600,000, 18, 700,000, 16, 900,000, 2015, 12, 1.2 million, sorry, not 12, 1.2 million. We historically add to this account quite often. We don't take it down. I think what Councillor Ices is suggesting, and I'm supporting, is a stabilization of the tax stabilization reserve account, as in we get this down to a more reasonable reserve. And I believe it's 3.6 million, 89,000, I think, is if you returned the 1.5, because we were already suggesting to use just shy of 400,000 in the budget. But yeah, this is not passing the buck down. I struggle when we use that comment. We're fortunate that we have a reserve that is sitting rather large. It is only one of the reserves we have. We also have ARS. We have one JIB. We have several investments. We have two companies that we are shareholders of. I think it's about time the taxpayer gets a little bit of this benefit. And you can argue that yes, tax or election season is coming up this year, but I also argued a year ago that we needed to adjust these tax stabilization reserves, ARS, etc. So this is not pushing the buck. This is simply stabilizing our reserves and making them more reasonable reserve due to the stressors of our taxpayers right now, having to deal with what's going on down south, having to deal with day-to-day groceries, etc. They're ready to break. Our taxpayer is ready to break. And I think we need to lower this rate to just try to help the everyday resident in our town.
Thank you, Councillor Drodge. I'm going to go to Director Gibson next.
Hi, thank you through the mayor to the councillor. Earlier, your question regarding the min-max of the reserve. I apologize, I misspoke. We would actually be dropping below the threshold of the 5% without the inclusion of the 1.5 surplus from the 1.9. So I apologize.
No worries, Director. You probably
Thank
saw
you.
my face. You probably saw my face. I was like, what? I don't know. Deputy Mayor Fowler. You're on mute, Deputy.
Seems to be a common thing tonight. When we had this discussion last year, the concept came up consistently that we're putting money ahead for the future for things to occur. The issue I have now is that with all the external factors that are putting pressure on everybody's pocketbook, is that we had no control over that. We have a control over this. In this scenario, we can give someone just that breathing room just for that little bit until the next speed bump is hit. We've talked about reducing the surplus to such a degree that we could lower it significantly. I remember Councillor Drodge bringing it up and actually adamantly fighting for it. Even now, he's even with him backing off a little bit, we're still looking at saving people 20% on their tax increase this year. And to some families, that means food on the table. So this is something I can't say, well, we have all this excess for a rainy day. Oh, look, it's raining, with the Trump issues and everything else, and the downturn and the increase in the interest rates and everything else. Now's the time to use it. We have a rainy day fund. Use the rainy day fund when it rains. Right now, people are struggling. They're choosing quality of food over healthy, nutritious foods because they can't afford a proper meal. So if after a number of years, how many years did you go back, Councillor Drudge, to 2019, where we had like a majority of them were surplus? This is something we can 1 year just give people that breathing room just until we settle things down and move things in a proper direction that they can actually afford a proper lifestyle. This is I have to back this. I mean, we're here to look out for our people. So let's look out for our people. Thank you.
Councillor Zanella.
Thank you, Your Worship. We're living in unprecedented times, and this is an opportunity for us to be able to help the residents. If there's any way that I can help the residents, and I believe all my colleagues mostly feel the same way, this is the time. The time is now. When we met a few months ago with our partners, the Innisfil Community Foundation people, we kept hearing, we're in crisis mode. We're in crisis mode. And many of our people are in crisis mode. People are visiting food banks more than ever before. Times are tough, and it's tough for all of us. And I agree with Deputy Mayor. If there's anything at all that we can do, the time is now.
Thank you, Councillor Zanella. Councillor Ices.
Thank you, Worship. Yeah, just a few comments around having a healthy reserve. I definitely wouldn't put this motion forward if I thought it would put us in a difficult financial position. I think it's very interesting that we had that presentation earlier about the long-term financial plan. Looking to be able to use that tool in a situation like this, but basically, when it comes to reserves, we're just bringing it back to where we approved it would be a year ago. The 3.6 is not any lower than what it is at the end of the 2025 fiscal year. So we're not really going backwards on this. We're using the surplus from 2025, and Councillor Drudge shared some of those numbers that I got from staff, and it is a testament to this town's ability to manage finances, where year after year this council comes forward with a budget. Hard choices are made, and staff gets through that budget, and oftentimes with a surplus to their credit. So it's just managing that reserve fund, because that is that's our town, that's our residents' money. That's not ours. So I think we need to have some for a rainy day, but we also have to use it for their benefit as well. So I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. Did I see Councillor Richardson's hand?
Yes, my hand was up, but I think it's going to have to be a separate, as I just wanted to bring up the discussion about with the teen nights, and then maybe adding to this motion about the staff coming back with a report, how maybe like the ARS fund could support that. But I don't know if that would need to be separate, or if I could have it as a friendly addition to this amendment.
Thank you. Let's carry on with these hands, and then we'll see what comes forward. Councillor Waters.
Thank you.
Thank you, Worship. I'm still going to argue against it. Everyone's going to say I'm for tax hikes. That's not it at all. Is that this isn't about this tax stabilization reserve. This is these costs don't disappear. They're going to continue on into 2027 and 2028, and then taxes are going to have to go up higher to cover off of those additional taxes. By that time, your tax stabilization rate will be where it is at its minimum, and you won't be able to use that again. So this just seems to be opportunistic, that it's an election next year, and everyone wants to say they fought on behalf of the residents, giving them a break this year. But 2 years down the road, when it comes to 2027, 2028 year, this is what happened during the pandemic when we gave a 0% increase and a 1% increase. It came back to bite us the following years after that, where we had to increase taxes substantially in order to cover off the fact that we hadn't covered off those original costs. So, you know, I understand the argument around tax stabilization. You know, if you want to use that money, that's what you can use it for. This is what we argued last year. We used tax stabilization, I believe, last year to help reduce the number last year. So it's the same argument this year. You're just bumping down those costs down to 27, 28 for the new council, and you know, and I hope this helps get everyone elected again. But I think you're just pulling the wool over the eyes of residents, thinking they're going to get a decrease this year, but in 27, 28, that's exactly what's going to happen. Thank you.
I'm going to make a couple of comments here before I go into round 2 or 3 with other people. So I just want to cover a couple of questions first of all. So when we looked at the impacts of the South Simcoe Police budget, which were significant, unexpected, we only budgeted like 8% for it. But one of the things that I thought maybe saved us a bit was our cost sharing ratio. So we had anticipated that in 2026, we would be paying 53.36% of the budget, where in fact we're only paying 53.14. That's what we're proposing we're paying. So that helped even it out a bit. So even though it is a big increase, we're not paying as big a chunk of that increase. Bradford's paying more of a chunk than we thought. But I want to know when and how we determine that for sure. Like, when do we know exactly when our cost sharing, what our cost sharing revenue is with Bradford and for South Simcoe Police? Treasurer Webb.
Yes, Mayor Dolan. So we do have those numbers now because we have received our returned roll for 2026 already. So, and that's why we're able to state with some certainty what the impact is to the average homeowner. We know what that assessment growth is, so we're able to calculate that out. Staff are targeting to come to council on January 14th with that cost sharing report and approval of the police budget.
Thank you. And then the other thing I want to talk about a bit is the MPAC assessment, because there's a bit of confusion. So right now, our MPAC is based on 2016 values. So everybody's property is based on what the assessed value was in 2016. I'm sorry, I have to cough. I'm sorry. So then let's say your house was built in 2020 and it's assessed. Is it assessed at 2020 values or is it assessed at 2016 values?
So Mayor Dolan, it is assessed at 2016 values.
Right, because I've had some people tell me that they think they're being unfairly treated because they live in a newer home. So therefore their house is assessed more, where in fact it isn't. It's assessed, everybody's houses are assessed at 2016 value. Okay, I just wanted to clear that up.
Yeah.
Thank you. Then the other thing I want to talk about just briefly is this idea of it being the mayor's proposed budget. So in 2023, some municipalities, including Innisfil, received strong mayor powers. And then now every municipality in Ontario, if you have a council of 5 or more than 5 members, received strong mayor powers. And one of the things you cannot delegate back to council is the budget. So there's a whole hodgepodge of how people do budgets across Ontario right now, but the way we're doing it is the way we've always done it, in the way that we have these discussions, debates. Although this year isn't a full budget, this is just, the second half of a 2-year budget. But we do all that, we come to some kind of a consensus, and then whatever that consensus is, then that is the budget that the mayor presents. So there'll be no decisions made tonight. Any direction we give to council gives, will go back to staff, and it'll come back on January 14th. So I just want to make that clear right off the bat, is that we aren't setting any rate tonight. We're simply directing staff to see what can be done. And then finally, I just want to talk about budgets as a whole, which setting the budget for the corporation of the town of Innisfil is no different than setting your own household budget, except there's more zeros at the end of it. But you need to make sure that you've got enough money for the stuff that you absolutely need to do. Pay your mortgage, pay your car payment, pay your insurance, pay your property taxes. You got to make sure you do all that. Then you figure out if you've got enough money for a vacation or, to buy new patio furniture and stuff like that. So that's how we have to think of it too, is we can't say, well, we're going to borrow on our credit card to pay our mortgage so that we can go on a vacation. Right? Nobody would do that with their household budget, and we can't do it with the town's money either. So that's I think part of where Councillor Waters is going, and it doesn't matter what year it is. It's a responsibility of ours always not to make the popular decision, but to make the right decision for the municipality. We always have to do our fiduciary duty and do its best for the municipality. Having said all that, I don't have a problem with sending this motion back to have staff look at it to see what comes out of this. But we have to have a rainy day fund. If, like, we talk about all these reserves we have, but the reserve that we have, the ARS reserve, it's a big reserve, but more than half of it is committed. So we've got a $30 million reserve, but 17 million is committed to projects. It's gone, it's spent. So any of those, this takes our tax stabilization reserve under the policy that council set. Council said we want a minimum of 5%. This takes us under that. So I just don't want everybody to think that there's all this cash that's around, because just like your home, if you've got a little bit of rainy day savings because you get a leak in your roof, or, like mine, the starter goes in my car, you need money to pay for that. We had a huge ice storm in the spring. We could very well have another one. With climate change the way it is now, who knows what's going to be the next catastrophe that we're going to have to have money in our account to pay for. So I just want to, I'm trying to bridge the gap between both sides, between spend all our reserves and devil may care versus helping. We've got to help the people, and I'm trying to find the middle ground between that. And I'll stop talking now. Councillor Drodge.
Thanks, Your Worship. I appreciate those comments. I have to respond to Councillor Waters. If you think a 4.2% blended property tax increase is going to get me reelected if I was to so run again, I would strongly suggest that I probably would not. I would hope that if I were to run for reelection, that I'd be voted in on things better or better things I've done other than and stick somebody with a 4.2% property tax increase. Secondly, we approved the budget 1 year ago with the tax stabilization reserve sitting at 3.6 million. So we already went under our 5% threshold when we approved that budget. Councillor Ices is simply suggesting, because we were so fantastic at only using I'm guessing, well, we got 1.9 million going back, then we carry it into this budget and let that offset a bit of the taxes for the resident for this second part of our budget. I don't think that's being irresponsible. I think we're just supporting that we were okay at the original budget 1 year ago of lowering below our 5% threshold and having that sit at 3.6 million or whatever that number is. The household budgets, Mayor, that you spoke to, we have one income and we budget off that. If the town is fortunate, we have several reserves. So if we have 3.6 million sitting here and $16 million after we look at our ARS fund of excess money, you know, you start going in percentages of what we are actually having on reserves, and we could get upwards of 20, 25, 30%. If you were to ask me if I can budget 30% of my annual budget as a household, I would say that there's no way I could do it in today's world. I think it's much more lean. I think the households are living almost day to day. I think a lot of people are living pay to paycheck right now. I think the town needs to tighten up our belt a little bit and say, maybe, yes, we have to have rainy day funds, and yes, we have to have reserves, but we need to make them a little closer, a little more streamlined, just to get through some of these rough times. And we haven't mentioned anything about one jib, and one jib sitting there. I don't know the numbers, but that was put in by council several years ago to help with capital costs. It was a high yielding savings account that council at that time made a great decision in investing money into for capital projects to help offset capital projects. That account sitting, I believe, like, don't quote me, but 50 to 70 million. It's a big number. I just think we need to, as a whole council, realize that we made the decision to go to 3.6 million 1 year ago. Like I said, Councillor Ices is only suggesting we keep that money out for the second part of our budget. I don't think that's being irresponsible, and I don't think in any sort of a way that we're having a conversation tonight because of elections next year. Like, I haven't changed my opinion from a year ago, and I won't change my opinion even if I wasn't elected again. I strongly believe that we just need to be tighter on our strings when it comes to our reserves. I just simply think we need to just, you know, maybe go below our lines a little bit till we get through this rough time.
Thank you, Councillor Dodge. I'm going to just ask either Treasurer Webb or Director Gibson to just clarify something about the one jib, because it is wonderful. It's absolutely wonderful. We're a founder in that organization and we're making great returns on the money we've invested there. But I believe that money that is invested in one jib isn't a reserve. It's other money. It's money from all over that we put in there that we don't need for a while, but it's committed. But I could be wrong, and I would appreciate being challenged if I am. Thank you, Treasurer Webb.
Yes, Mayor Dolan, the funds that we do have in one jib, it is a combination of different reserve funds. So some of it's development charges, so income earned on it has to go to the development charge accounts, and some of the other reserve fund accounts. So of the money that we earn, it gets allocated back out to those funds proportionately, as the money that is sort of sitting in those funds and being invested in one jib. And so, you know, and I guess the other thing too, in related to one jib, it is somewhat difficult to budget or forecast, you know, what those returns will be. So we do see a little bit of fluctuation in those, in what we budget in terms of between what we budget and those actuals. And so that's why you're seeing some variances in that line too on the actual results.
Thank you. I just want to be clear, that's not another pocket of money. That is just a tool we use to take our reserves and our DC accounts in order that they make more interest for us. Deputy Mayor Fowler.
Thank you, Your Worship. Two things. One, I'm going to let the whole election comment slide. Everyone's entitled to their opinion. It's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. I think everyone here comes as equals, which is a good thing. I want to point of clarification, though. There was a comment made by Councillor Waters that about the 0% and 1%. Now, there's a significant difference between what we're doing here compared to what we did then on the previous council. I if I recall correctly, when the Simcoe County portion of the tax bill came in, Innisfil ate it. When the police budget came in, Innisfil ate it. When it came to the school boards, Innisfil ate it. That's how we get the 0%, because we cut back our services to such a degree that we put the money into alternate sources to provide that 0%. So this, you're comparing apples and oranges in this one. So I have to disagree with that comment. This scenario, we're basically saying that we're looking to assist people by not putting something into a tax stabilization reserve that has been consistently, because of the quality of the work the staff has done, in the black. Now, we're keeping above the 5%, or it might be below the 5%, but I mean, if you take a look at this point, how many times it's happened over the past decade, it's not an every year thing. It's not, oh, well, we'll delay it a year. Oh, we'll delay it another budget cycle. We'll delay it another budget cycle. We've been over $1 million in certain scenarios, and we've been at the 5% plus consistent, between 5 and 10%. With what's happening in the world today, we have to take care of the people who voted us in to take care of them. And sometimes that means, when it comes down to something like this, you defer a payment. You don't give it back 100%. You pay the minimum amount or whatever you can, but you take care of the people who you were put in office to do so. And I just, in this scenario, I think this is the appropriate thing to do. It's not perfect, but I mean, it's something that we can, knock wood, recover from.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I would challenge you on the school board. The school board's been a 0% increase for over a decade now. And while I agree we have to take care of the people, that's what we're here for. We have to take care of them more than just this year. We have to take care of them next year and the year after and the year after. And we have to take care of their kids too. And then my final comment would be that I missed in my notes here. The ARS isn't a, the ARS is for those who don't know, is alternate revenue source, and it is the money that we get from OLG casinos, and we budget about $7 million a year. It could be gone tomorrow. It is not a guarantee. One flip of a pen at Queen's Park and it's gone. So we've always known that, and ever since that casino opened, we have always treated that revenue as kind of money that you don't count on. Don't rely on that money, because if you do and it's gone, you're really in big trouble. So that's why we use it to pay the non-growth portion of capital items and strategic projects. But having said that, and I think I did read somewhere that it is high time that we did look at our ARS policy again, because we haven't looked at it, I think, since we developed it. It's been a long time. But I just want you all to know that that ARS money is there today, maybe gone tomorrow, so we can absolutely never count on it. Councillor Waters.
Thank you, Worship. Here's an election slogan for next year, is that I argue on your behalf because I reduced it from 5.5 to 4.2. I'm not going to go say I had 4.2. You're going to argue on it that you reduced it. But none of you you've all gone back to tax stabilization firm. And I fully admit Councillor Dodge has a mantra of wanting to reduce our reserves. And we all voted last year that we would maintain our this reserve, tax stabilization, at 5%. Now we're going below it just because it's an opportune time to reduce our tax increase from 5.5 to 4.2. But none of you have talked about how you're just kicking the can down the road to the next council where they're going to have to make up, because these costs don't disappear. They stay on the budget and they grow. So all you're doing is saying, yes, we're going to give you a break this year, but boy, we're going to have to really sit down and talk about council and the budget for 27 and 28. So drop this tax stabilization rate. Do you agree or don't agree that it's going to increase, that this cost is going to be just transferred down the road? And so I says, so my opinion is This is strictly a reason to look good in front of the taxpayers, that you're standing up for the taxpayers. But if you're really looking at long-term sustainability, you're just dumping it down the road to 27, 28 budget, where council is going to have to then look at it, and it's going to be their first budget they look at when they get elected. That's what's going to happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Waters. Councillor Ices, and then I think we're going to try to wrap things up because we've had great discussion. We're going to have great discussion in January when it comes back, but we'll call the vote shortly.
Thank you, Worship. I have to respond to Councillor Waters because this is the motion I brought forward, and this is our residents' money, and we had a surplus this year, so I can't, in good conscience, say here's a 5.5% tax increase. Look at Barrie. What are they? They're in the 3s. Bradford's in the 3s. What's wrong with Innisfil? How come we have to pay so much taxes? And you got a $1.9 million surplus, and you're still going to hit us with a 5.5% tax increase? I'm sorry, I just can't. I can't face residents with that. There are costs that we know we have to cover, and I am thankful our staff is looking into this long-term financial planning exercise that I'm hoping will be in place for the next council when they have that budget discussion again. We financially, this town has done a fabulous job managing finances, and I don't think this drop from a 5.5 to 4.2 changes that at all. So that would be my my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Councillor Richardson, did you want to?
So is this where I should add in about the youth? Like, can this be a friendly amendment or an addition to this motion?
And I think Councillor Ices has some wording ready, maybe,
Oh.
if he wants to bring it up.
If you think it's appropriate, Mayor Dolan, I do have a motion, another motion that deals with that part of the budget.
Can I let me ask the clerk, how do we want to do this? Because now we've got another motion to amend, or should we do it as another motion?
Sorry.
Thank you, Mayor Dolan. I would suggest that this be voted on first, and the other one be voted on separately, because they are two separate items, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Clerk Marshall. Okay, so we have a motion to amend. We've had good discussion. This is just asking staff to report back, and I believe it's going to be back on January 14th. Is that correct, CEO Gershow? Or somebody? There he is.
Just finding the buttons, Mayor Dolan, sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, so I mean, I think the council's budget discussion tonight is not over yet. So, we're kind of waiting to see the full outcome of this discussion. But, what I think staff need here is direction on what council would like to do with the proposed budget. As was already stated, we have the 2026 budget from last year. We're talking about, revisions to that budget. So we have one piece of the puzzle on the screen now. I want to acknowledge, there's more discussion to come. To the extent, what's useful about the motion that's on the screen is it gives us a target, but also gives us some flexibility on how to get there. Obviously, we've been listening to council's discussion, a lot of commentary around the use of reserves. We will keep that in mind, but we will try to come back in January with a proposal on how best to achieve the targets council is giving us direction on tonight.
Thank you. So let's vote on this motion then. All in favor? Oh, sorry, Councillor Waters, did you have one more before we vote on the amendment, or?
Yeah, just a question.
Yeah.
Voting for this amendment, isn't mean that we're in favor of the going from 5.2. It's just that we're referring it back to staff. And so I was going to feel like a hypocrite if I voted for it and after all my arguments. So,
No.
okay, yes, I just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah, you're, sorry, go ahead, CEO Gershaw.
Thank you, Mayor Dolan. I guess just so we're all on the same page about this, I guess if council were to approve the motion on the screen, we would take that as direction to modify the budget to achieve a 4.2% blended property tax increase. And I guess, while I have the floor, I would observe, I have not really heard much discussion from council about reducing service levels to get there. I've heard more discussion around use of reserves as on the revenue side of the ledger, if you will, to get to that outcome. So, we would take this as council's direction about an outcome you're seeking to achieve.
Thank you. So if we were to amend the amendment to say, unless there was so service levels, I don't think there's an appetite to reduce service levels, but if there was other efficiencies like we found with the new park operating costs and the vehicle equipment fuel costs and the excess soils or anything like that, if there was more opportunities to look at any of those. But I guess my assumption was that you've been down that rabbit hole and you've gotten everything that you absolutely can.
If I could, Mayor Dolan, yes, we have been down that rabbit hole. I think the idea is, we would go back to the toolbox and see if we used all the tools in the toolbox to the maximum extent possible. And reserves are among those tools.
Thank you. Councillor Drodge.
Thanks, Your Worship. Yeah, we did a good job already the past year. $1.9 million of surplus stayed out of the budget in the tax stabilization reserve. So, even though we're saying we're going to use the tax, or we're asking to use the tax stabilization reserve to get down to a 4.2 blended tax rate, the end of 2026, there could be an offset. Maybe things, work well like they did in the past year. And our surplus is sitting back at $1.6 million again. Like that was originally, like it was $2 million, I believe, is what we allocated out of that account, and we're returning 1.9. Like I just want to make it clear that we're going to use the stabilization reserve to get the blended rate down, but we have no idea what the next year. Like to the mayor's point, you said we could have another ice storm and it not benefit us, but then we could have some capital projects not see the light, or operations becomes a little less, or for whatever reason we have a surplus. I just want to make sure that we also understand, by voting on this, we could have a surplus, and we generally have had a surplus over the years with this account. So we're just saying that we're going to use it to get the 4.2, and our staff will utilize throughout the year the budget, and possibly we could have a surplus. So instead of trying to pick down our budget today, we could automatically solve our budget a year from now when they go to look at the 2027, 2028 budget. There could be a surplus there. I just want to make sure we're clear on that.
Okay, I'm going to call the vote. All in favor of the recommendation on the screen? And those opposed? So I'm not sure I saw everybody's hands, so I'm going to do that again. All in favor? And those opposed? Councillor Constantine, I didn't see your hand in favor or opposed. If you don't vote, then you're opposed. That's the way it goes.
I did put my hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see it. So you put your hand up in favor or opposed?
Yes.
In favor? Okay. Okay, so that's 8 in favor, 1 opposed. And that's carried. And now the motion as amended. All in favor of the recommendation? That's carried. All right. That's C1. And now we'll go to C, was it 4? Oh, sorry, no,
Oh,
Councillor Richardson. Yeah. You had another motion.
I don't actually have a motion. I'm interested to hear what Councillor Ices is. I just wanted to open the discussion about the Building Safer Communities Fund and being able to still have our youth nights. As I've advocated before, our youth nights are so important. Like 5,500 youth have attended to this. I did reach out to South Simcoe Police to see if there was any stats because I like numbers and stats. Unfortunately, there's not really stats that I could share, but I did, in talking with police chief, he did mention that, like that teen nights does expose teens to positive role models. There are the police that do attend. There are different counseling services that do attend teen nights. It helps to identify at-risk youth that may be flying under the radar. So they're being able to see which youth are needing help. It keeps kids busy and it's a safe place for them to hang out. And one of the more important things that I thought was interesting that I never thought of myself was that those kids that are suffering from food insecurity, there's food offered at this. Like maybe this is their only meal they're getting that week is at teen nights. And that just breaks my heart. And I think that's just another reason to figure out how there's a way that we could still have our teen nights and our youth programs for our youth, like especially the teen nights.
Thank you, Councillor. So, Councillor Ices.
Thank you, Worship. I'll call on Councillor Drodge again to help me get this on the floor. So we have had some discussion about this program and the benefits that it's had for our community, and the fact that the funding that we've gotten from the federal government is ending in March. So I didn't want that to not be discontinued, but I also didn't want to see it put on the property tax levy until we had explored other options. The program isn't over yet. The motion that I have on the floor directs staff to get a final report back on its effectiveness, as Councillor Richardson has talked about, and then possibly look at funding from the ARS reserve fund or possible future grants. I believe staff is coming back with some a policy discussion around ARS in 2026. The comparable thing around the ARS program that I thought of is, we already fund the Innisfil Community Foundation through the ARS, and this program is along those lines where it's helping groups in our community, the youth, which are very important. So that's my motion. I'm looking forward to any comments on it.
Thank you. I want to go to Director Figliuzzi just for clarification. So I know the funding ends March 31st, but my understanding was that the program was ending December 31st, but I could be wrong.
Through you, Mayor Dolan, that is correct. While the Building Safer Communities Fund dollars do stretch through to March 31st, 2026, the majority of the active programming, including teen nights, do end as of the end of this year. So last teen night, for instance, is December 17th. The final quarter of the funding period, January to March, is really for program evaluation wrap up and extensive reporting back to Public Service Canada to report on how the dollars were used during the last fiscal year. So in this recommendation, staff would be happy to report back. Depending on the timeline, with the funding ending 14 nights, there would be a gap in services provided to the community until a decision was made by council at whatever appropriate time.
Thank you. Councillor Waters.
If you don't mind, Your Worship, I wouldn't mind hearing what Councillor Richardson has to say first of all, and save my comments till after she speaks. Thank you.
Absolutely. Councillor Richardson.
Originally, I was just going to mention about the teen nights does end at like December. I wonder if there is, if we are going to wait for them to come back, is there some sort of like emergency funding that so that teen nights can still continue in January? Because we do have that momentum of these kids coming and the momentum of coming, like who knows, maybe the same kid comes every Friday for that meal and to have that free counseling that's there that Friday night, and then they're going to lose that momentum, and that could make a big difference to a youth. So I wonder if there's any way that there's any possible way that we could still be able to, after the Christmas break, still have our teen nights run while we are making this decision.
I don't know who to send that to, Director Figliuzzi or um, Director Gershaw. I mean,
Thank you,
CAO
Mayor Dolan.
Gershaw.
Thank you, Mayor Dolan. To respond to Councillor Richardson's comment, I would suggest what you're talking about is a different motion, because to be clear about it, I think the way staff read the motion on the screen is the teen nights and the BSCF programming would wind down. And after it's wound down, we would evaluate the program and come back to council in April or May and say, do you want to start it up again? So that's how we understand what's on the screen right now. If council's intention is something different than that, I would suggest you need a different motion.
Well,
Can
can I just defer to Councillor Ices, because I think he thought that teen nights was going to be staying on happening until March 31st, hence the reason for the motion the way it was written. Councillor Ices.
Yeah, Your Worship, I did make an error in that, but I also I think the way CEO Gershaw has stated it is how I want the motion to read. I think staff needs time to analyze this and to see what the positives, where we want to move this forward. And I do appreciate Councillor Richardson's concern about the lack of momentum, but if this is something we want to move forward for years, I think council needs to be thoughtful on how we fund it, and also what the programs are, because we will have opportunities to change whatever we think needs to be changed.
Thank you, Councillor Richardson.
So I'm just curious then, because the report that we got at the last council meeting, I feel was about the Building Safer Communities Fund. Explain what it was, explain where the money went, explain how many kids were attending, and explain that sort of stuff. So I don't, apart from asking the staff to come back now with a way to fund this, I don't understand what we would be waiting for as opposed to waiting, I guess, if that makes sense.
So I think it was to evaluate all of it, not just the teen nights, which was obviously the most successful, but there was other pieces of it too.
Right, and they were all in that report, I felt.
Yeah.
Because there was stuff about YCAN, there was stuff about the summit that they
CFS.
did, like all of that. So I just don't understand what we'd be waiting for of a report for about the Better Building Safer Communities Fund.
Understood. The other item that I wanted to ask about is, I know at one point we did talk to one community service group who hosted it for one night, and I didn't know if there was any further discussions. I don't want to name who, but if there's any opportunities there as well, with the community group. I'll go to Councillor Waters now, and we'll go from there.
Thank you, Your Worship. I support Councillor Richardson in terms of her concerns. I think there was a report that did talk about the benefits of the program. I think to lose it would be a shame. And so I think, trying to find some money to do that would be a good idea. I'm not too sure the alternative revenue source reserve fund is another reserve fund that is currently used for, if people want to correct me, it's used for funding the foundation, plus also most of that goes to capital kind of non-DC projects. So this is money that if we take from the alternative revenue source reserve fund, then we have to find money that taxpayers are paying for to pay for those things in the non-DC funding that happens. So even though you want to say you don't want to use taxpayers' dollars, you're going to end up using taxpayers' dollars. So why not just say we're going to use taxpayers' dollars for this really well thought out program that the federal government has paid for the past few years, and our students have been, the result of it. So I think by using the alternative revenue source is just taking money from that, which will then in fact reduce money available for those non-DC capital projects. So I would suggest we just say that we're going to fund it and not say that it's alternative revenue sources. We're going to have a study next year that may open that up a little bit. I'll suggest that if that's the case, that we wait for that report to come, and then we can change our minds after how we want to spend that money. But to put it, this is putting the cart ahead of the horse, because we haven't got that report in terms of how we should. Council hasn't voted on it either. So I'll suggest I support the program. I support finding the funding for it. I just think not this way that this motion is written. Thank you.
Thank you. So on page 8 of 12 of the report, table 7, it talks about the two options, option 1 and option 2. It talks about the impact to the blended rate. So while we're discussing the motion that is currently on here, maybe you can think about, as CIO Jershel said, putting forward a different motion if that's something you want to think about doing. Councillor Drodge.
Thanks, Your Worship. I'm not sure if we can do this, but it sounds like teen nights is the one that's got the motivation right now where people are wanting to attend. Can we specifically pull teen nights out of the budget and fund just teen nights, and what that would look like as a cost? Like, is it something that would be something that we could use the ARS fund, because it'd be very minimal, just to keep that going while we go through the rest of that part of the budget to have a proper conversation over the other stuff, like pull teen nights out? Is that something we could do?
CAO Jershel.
Thank you, Mayor Dillon. I think the short answer, Councillor Drodge, is yes, we could do that. I guess I'd maybe ask Director Figliuzzi to also come online. Maybe just elaborate, because I think Mayor Dillon's correct. Option 1 and option 2 described on page 8 of the report were intended to sort of give you that sense of, the full BSCF program or a scaled down version. I think the way I'm hearing your question is, could we scale it down even further so you really just have that teen nights programming? We've obviously costed option 2, the amount is there. I guess what I would call out, is what expectation does council have for sustaining that program year over year? Is it to continue it through 2026, or is it to just continue it indefinitely? Because then you're essentially just adding new programming to the operating budget with a future year requirement as well. But maybe Director Figliuzzi, you can elaborate.
Absolutely. Thank you, CEO Jershel. Option 1 is outlined is really that core teen night function in itself. Primarily and most significantly, to run teen nights is a huge investment on the staff. So the majority of the budget is made up of staff wages. That option proposes one full-time contract staff member from the town of Innisfil, as well as a part-time contract staff member from the Idea Lab and library, who are fundamental to running the program. The dollars also help offset continuing to run the YMCA night of the teen nights. The small portion that is also included in option one is to help support the initiatives of the Innisfil Youth Connects Committee. We did have some nominal funds that were directed to them through the BSCF. They've had some tremendous support and initiatives in gathering and raising momentum across youth in Innisfil. And so option one proposal does also include dollars to sustain their activities across the community. While we talk about option two, this is intended to continue the wraparound services and all the community supports that are provided through the BSCF, most notably YCAN and participation with other organizations. Again, the big difference there is sustaining the funding required for the two individuals. So to answer the question a little bit more directly, option one, there is not too much more that we can strip out to make sure that we have adequate resources and staffing and supervision to run meaningful, safe, and secure, and as well fun teen nights 3 nights a week across the town of Innisfil and our partners, library, YMCA, and then the support services that do come in to provide an extra layer of support to the youth.
Francesca, just quick point of clarification. I think you meant option two is the small one, not option one, right?
My apologies. I did inverse them. Option two is the core teen night program. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Francesca. So I guess Councillor Richardson, this would be to you. I think option two is what you would really want to put forward. And then I guess as a council, we decide if we're okay with the, I don't have it in front of me, it's 0.25 on the tax levy, or what was it? Can somebody help me with that?
It's 0.22 the tax levy for option one and 0.15 for the option two. And I would be fine with option two. It's the teen nights that I really, like I said, it really makes me sad to think that they're not going to continue.
So Councillor Ices, you being the one that moved this, are you interested in changing our motion? And I'll second it.
I am friendly to that amendment.
So for clarification, we're going to support option two with an increase of the tax levy 0.15.
Yep, that's what's in the numbers that we see there. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm getting a little confused. So the other motion about, doing it for 1 year as a project, as a pilot project to see how it runs, is that off the table now? CAO Dershell, can you help?
So the clerks can jump in too. So I think, yes, it's off the table. I guess we have essentially rewritten Councillor Icy's original motion without having voted on it. But I mean, Councillor Icy's just said he was amenable to the friendly amendment. So if clerks thinks that's okay, and we treat this as essentially the only motion on the table because we amended the one that was originally put on the table, then I think this basically captures it. And I guess for what it's worth, I would say from my reading, this means essentially a 1 year extension of the programming, and the decision around whether to continue it in 2027, 28 would be a future budget discussion.
So now we're looking at 4.35 instead of 4.2, because this is adding a 1.5. A 0.15, sorry, a 0.15 increase.
Well, I guess
just want to make
that might actually be a question for council, whether it is your
Yeah.
intent to add to 4.2, because now that you've voted, you said you want 4.2. One could conceivably try and find $148,000 in the budget without raising taxes, or you could take 4.2 and add 0.15 to it. So if council has a view on that, please let us know.
Why don't we just say our CAO Dershell that, staff take it back and see if you say there's absolutely no way we can find $148,000, we have to add another 0.15, then bring it back in January and we can vote on it then. Is that suitable?
I think that's workable.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Waters.
Thank you. I just look for a point of clarification in between option 1 and option 2. When I read option 1, it does say on the third line, it says, and resourcing funding to support teen nights programming collaboration with what? So it seems that teen nights seems to be part of option 1 and option 2. So my question, do you get full teen nights just in option 2?
Director Figliuzzi.
For you, Mayor Dolan, correct. Option 2 at that 0.15 blended impact to the blended rate is focused on delivering the teen night program across the 3 locations in partnership between the town, the Idea Lab and Library, the YMCA.
So what is it referring to in option 1 then? Where, line 2 and 3, it says to support to sustain teen nights programming in collaboration. So it talks about teen nights in that paragraph. So I just want to make sure that you're allowing yourself enough funding in order to support the entire program if I find it in option 1 and in option 2.
Correct. So option 1 is Teen 9 Plus, all the wraparound services and partnering with our local service agencies to continue the good work that's been underway over the last 18 months. And option 2 is only teen nights without any continuation of funding towards these wraparound support services.
Okay. I sometimes having just a program without support services doesn't have the impact that you normally hope it would have. It's 3 isolated events with no support to help out teens after the fact. So I think my personal opinion is just that it seems to gut the whole the good part of the program in terms of those after supports. But this I will fall back to what Jennifer likes, because I think like I said, I think we're getting some of the programming here. I'm just not too sure it's everything that it could be. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Waters. So this is where I thought pieces of Councillor Icey's original motion would fit in here, that this was the idea of being able to sustain it until we come up with reevaluating the entire thing and what, what was good and cost effective and maybe what we could do without. Am I seeing any more hands? Or are we just going to vote on this? I'm seeing a lot of blank stares. So, Councillor Waters? No, that was
Since there's no other comments, I think if we're going to look at this, revise the that we look at both option 1 and option 2, and then let staff come back to us and tell us, around what budget impacts it's going to have and when not everyone is for or against it. Everyone always talks about how important youth are.
Councillor Icey's.
I'm struggling a little bit how this has gone as well. To keep the teen nights going, and we are employing, I could be corrected on this, contract staff for some of this. Is it still possible that we give ourselves a chance as council to review what this is going to look like, and that would help answer Councillor Waters' questions as well. So that would have to be an amendment to this, that leave that 0.1 up there, but maybe just put it for I I'd ask for Councillor Richardson's help on this, for a time frame, and let staff come back to give us more options on a longer term, what we want to do as a town with this important program.
And I'm going to ask the seconder if he's okay with the wording of point 2.
So just for clarification, we are looking at option 2, but staff is going to report back at the effectiveness of the entirety. So like, should we be putting option 2 there then? Should it not stay as option 1? Because realistically, you want staff to be directed to look at the entire, I'm going to say it wrong now, BSEF or whatever it's called. So I just want to make sure we're getting it right.
So let me just tell you where my mind's going right now, and I'll go to you, CAO Jershaw. So we had this fund, and actually they found us. We didn't find them. This is federal funding. They came to us and they said, apply for it. Building Safer Community Fund. So we applied for it. We got close to $1 million for over, was it 3 years? I believe, 3-ish years. So my point is that after running that program for that long, staff would know better than anybody maybe what was really worth it and what was maybe we did it because we got the money from the federal government, but maybe it's not. So I would just like to hear from the people running the program where they felt they got the biggest bang for their buck and how much that buck is, like how much that buck costs, because maybe there was some stuff that was done in the BSCF that was done because we had $1 million, but maybe they wouldn't have done it if they didn't have $1 million. That's kind of where I'm going, and I'm sounding a bit like a Bare Naked Lady song. CAO Jershaw.
Thank you, Mayor Dolan. So a couple comments in response to yours and other comments. So you're right, BSCF, the programming was started because of the federal grant funding that we did not anticipate. And BSCF includes a variety of programming, including but not limited to teen nights, right? So there's teen nights, but there's other stuff. And I think I would suggest the motion that's currently on this screen is a bit contradictory, or at least it's confusing to me, because item number 1 says keep going with teen nights in 2026, whereas number 2 seems to say give us some analysis of our options for continuing programming for youth. Like, are we doing it or are we thinking about doing it? I think that's the part that's not clear for me.
Yeah, I think it's just a wording issue. I think it's like we want to keep going with team nights, but at the meantime, we want to re-examine youth programming in general. Like maybe there was something that the youth really wanted us to do that we couldn't do because it wasn't eligible under the BSCF. I don't know. Because I don't have a teen and I wasn't there. Councillor Waters and then Councillor Richardson.
Yeah, like I said, I'm finding it a bit confusing as well because we say in number 1 as outlined in option 2 of table 7, and then we're talking about 1 and 2. My concern, and the reason I brought it up, is that in option 1 talks about the wraparound services that go along with teen nights. I think they're a value asset. So I think having staff pick through what they actually need in order to provide an effective teen nights program with wraparound services, what does that look like? So I'm kind of looking at it's not option 2 by itself. It's let's look at option 1 and 2, and let's look at the teen nights with its wraparound service. What does that look like, and what is it going to cost? Because what's teen nights without the wraparound services? Is it going to have the same impact that it had the first time around? So I would suggest that we allow staff to take it back if that's what we want, teen nights plus wraparound services, what does that look like? What's it going to cost us? And then come back to us with, with a suggestion, a recommendation that we can then vote on that's a little clearer. Thank you.
So Councillor Ices and Councillor Drudge, what if it said that staff be directed to report back on youth programming? CAO Jershel?
Thank you, Mayor Dolan. So I think to Councillor Waters' point, from my perspective, teen nights plus wraparound services is option one, and it's priced there in the table on page 8. And what I'm a little foggy on is whether council wants us to explore option 3, which is to add even more programming for youth, which is kind of the vibe I'm starting to get here.
That's not where I was going. Where I was going is there might be some stuff in option 1 that was in the BSCF funding that we did because we had the money, but maybe didn't have the same impact that we thought it was going to have. That's what I'm saying. Director Figliuzzi?
Thank you, Mayor Dolan. The BSCF team, when they were working together to develop these options, option 1 and 2, they did mull through all the initiatives that were offered as a result of that lovely pot of funding. And they were able to whittle down and narrow down the services that are included in option 1 and 2. So what's reflected here is not everything that has been offered over the last 2 years. There were a number of education pieces, different outreach pieces that were not as impactful as the initiatives that are listed here. And furthermore, a number of the initiatives that are outlined in option 2, they were really fed into based on the ongoing survey responses that are received from youth, parents, and community members who have participated in not only the teen nights, but various initiatives and services that have been offered.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Richardson?
That's what I was going to mention, is that there is a survey going now. I believe it goes till Friday, asking families about their opinions about youth nights and what parts they like and that sort of stuff. So that will give them some data as well.
And Councillor Drudge, and then we're going to bring this to a close because we're past the hour of closure and we're going to need a motion to continue.
Thank you, Worship. Yeah, no, I think option 2, the reason why I was supporting this motion is that it is going to continue. This is how this all started. You don't want this to pause. You want to give staff the direction that we want this in our 2026 budget. We are acknowledging that, we are putting it only in our 2026 budget, and then throughout the year, we can look for possibilities of adding to this project or closing it down completely. But I think our goal right now is to include it in the 2026 budget and have teen nights not pause and continue to run. So that's why I would support this motion.
Councillor Waters?
I think teen nights is a wonderful thing. I think teen nights with the wrap-on service is a much better program. So personally, I'd rather see option 1 than option 2 because it's I don't think you're going to have the impacts on youth without the wraparound services. So because you have all those people, you have all those extra services there, I think it's much more impactful. So my option would be option 1, but I will leave it up to the person who made the motion and where Jennifer sits on this. Thank you.
Thank you. So we've got a duly moved motion to amend on the floor. And I'm going to call the vote. All those in favor of the amendment? I see a lot of maybe hands up here. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's everybody. Okay, that carries. So now the motion as amended. Any final discussion on this? And to Councillor, the only comment I would want is to Councillor Richardson, if Teen Nights is going, or to Councillor Waters, Teen Nights is going and it's still getting good progress, and you can bring them notice of motion to council. Councillor Waters.
My question, and I'm voting for the entire motion,
Yeah.
puts me in a bit of predicament, is that I support one, but I don't support the other.
Okay, the motion to have the motion divided. What do you want
Yes.
divided out, Councillor?
Well, I'd like to have, well, we've already voted on the number 2. So I would, I think, and then we already voted on them separately, so I'm not too sure why we have to put them back together.
We do. So your comments, during this YouTube video, your vote against that will be shown. This is just the final as amended vote, but your vote on that section has already been identified as against.
Okay.
So this is just to wrap it up, and I probably said that wrong, Clerk Marshall, but
Mayor Dolan, you said it correctly.
Okay. So all in favor of the recommendation? That is carried. Thank you very much, everybody. And now can we have a motion to extend the meeting to 10:30? Please, moved by Councillor Richardson, seconded by Councillor Drudge. All those in favor? That's carried. And I've lost my agenda. Here it is. So that brings us to the Innisfil Beach Road, and that was Deputy Fowler that pulled that one.
Thank you, Worship. I'm going to take a gamble here and say Council second if his hand was up when that's been pulled for committee of the whole. Am I correct in that assumption?
Is it just me, or is your hearing isn't very good? You want to maybe move your mic, or?
Is that better?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to take a gamble here and say Councillor Waters is my seconder, as his hand was up when this was pulled for committee of the whole. Am I correct? Okay, thank you. I was going through the report, and I remember the last time this came forth, and there were some questions I had regarding the traffic study and the walkway that's included now. It says on page 15 that the setbacks have been moved to 18.8 meters, 61 feet, 8 inches approximately. And I went to look at the blueprint on page, just one second here. Blueprint is on slide 27, the overhead view. And I'm curious because when I look at it, I don't see the pathway going completely through to Innisfil Beach Road. It says the walkway is included at the northeast corner of the property, providing access to the residential lots to the north as required through the previous application. One of the concerns that was brought up was the pathway. If people are going to go around to the school, is there any chance we could find out if it's going to have access to the rear yard of the school for the children who live in the building or within the region?
Manager Correa.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Dolan. So I do want to point out that if this CPPS amendment is approved tonight, there is still a detailed design process that we would require the applicant to file and submit. And as part of that, there has been ongoing consultation and dialogue with the school abutting. So the final details would be kind of worked out through that detailed design.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Second thing is actually regarding the traffic study. It says here, again, am I understanding correctly that the process will be discussed further? But it says here on page 14, staff cannot support a development that causes major traffic impacts. However, 3 potential solutions have been identified, which includes a reduction in unit count, which is not supported by the applicant. Access be provided from Webster Boulevard requires land acquisition or easement across 2 neighboring properties, or the exit driveway to the adjacent school be moved 6 meters to the east, which is not supported by the school board. Therefore, access from Webster Boulevard by way of land acquisition or easement or across the two adjacent properties to the west will be required to address the staffing concern of the staff. Is that something that is going to be discussed? When that comes back, if the developer wishes not to have the easement or the properties, what power can we as councils have to enforce or push this? Because you get one side, you got the developer not wanting to reduce units, and on the other side, you don't want to move the driveway 6 meters, 20 feet closer to an entranceway to the school.
Manager Correa.
Thank you. Through Mayor Dolan. So in the staff report, we've outlined sort of what's been considered by both our staff and our peer reviewer as potential feasible solutions. I do want to point out that the queuing observed in the modeling would occur later in the 2030s. And I just want, for the benefit of council and the community, to point out that it wouldn't be an all-day concern. It's particularly in the evening rush for about 15 or 20 minutes that there is some stacking observed on Innisfil Beach Road. And so we've been having discussions with the applicant in terms of what we think is the best solution is to protect for access onto Webster as being a secondary access. If you think of some of the development in the area along Innisfil Beach Road, if you think of the Sobeys, the No Frills Plaza, or others, we do our best to have accesses or driveways not to be too consecutively occurring along Innisfil Beach Road to alleviate some of these concerns. Now, like I said, there will be a detailed design process and more traffic-oriented work that will be required prior to the town issuing an agreement, a CPPS agreement on title that would allow them to proceed with the development. And so I think they still want to explore other potential options, but what we know today is that one of the most reasonable ways forward is for them to protect for an access to Webster. What's tricky about it is it's not a corner property. So there's the St. Louis Plaza and there's one property in between. So they would either need to acquire land or get a reciprocal easement in their favor to facilitate that access. Now, there could be another technical solution, whether it's shifting an access or something else contemplated through that detailed design process that could be to our satisfaction. But in preparing this report, we kind of went with what we know from our peer reviewer, Burnside, as being the most feasible.
Okay, if I may follow up, Your Worship.
Yeah.
So we're going to get another report back with a greater detail in regard to this. No, it'll just be put through. So, okay, I'd just like to be aware, everyone to be aware that we're talking about a space where people jaywalk, where we had the speed cameras where people were noted to speed. It's a crossing point for children day and night. And they use it consistently. This is something I want to draw attention to, because if you have 4 access points where and cars coming and going at all hours, I would prefer myself that the Webster option be explored as a primary option and, if possible, pushed, because we're talking about the children's safety here. That's my main concern in regards to this. Thank you.
Yeah, it doesn't come back to council. Everything else now is delegated to staff, if I'm not mistaken. Manager.
That's correct. So if the amendment is approved by council, the next step is they would file for their actual permit, which would be a staff process.
I think that these aren't insurmountable issues. I think that people have been very anxious to get this piece of property developed for a very long time. And I will point out that once the school board builds the school besides Sobeys on the south side of Innisfil Beach Road, it's my understanding from the school board that the boundary but for the 2 schools will be Innisfil Beach Road. So there won't be kids that live on the south side going to Alcona Glen, and there won't be kids living on the north side going to the new school on the south side. So that should help with some of that jaywalking in front of the school, hopefully. Other questions or comments on this item? Seeing none, all those in favor? That's carried. And now we go to the rise recommendation, please, moved by Councillor Zanella and seconded by Councillor Constantine. All those in favor? That is carried. And then consideration to adopt the recommendations from committee the whole. That's moved by Councillor Drodge and seconded by Councillor Saunders. All those in favor? That's carried. And then we go to announcements, I believe. Oh, sorry, notice of motions. There's no notice of motions, and then announcements. Announcements, anyone? Councillor Richardson.
Happening in Ward 3. So first of all, I just wanted to congratulate the Rotary Club on their amazing gingerbread contest. I believe this was I saw the 11th annual maybe. Anyways, the gingerbread houses that were built were phenomenal. Great job. Coming up on the 15th at the Innisfil Idea Lab and Library is the annual Hanukkah celebration at 5 p.m. On the 16th, on the Tuesday at 6:30 p.m. is the 3rd annual holiday sing-along at Town Square. And then December the 19th at midnight is the cutoff for those of you who want to enter the short story contest. It's open for grades 3 to 12. So that's your last chance to enter your story. And then also they are having New Year's Eve event at both Lakeshore and Cookstown branches, December 31st from 11 to 12. And then lastly, I just wanted to wish good luck to Miss Jenny's Dance Studio. Currently, they have a group of dancers in Florida at Walt Disney World that are doing a Dance the World competition representing Innisfil and dancing along Main Street of Disneyland. So it's pretty cool, and I just want to wish them luck and hope they're having a good time and enjoying the weather and not snow like we have here.
Councillor Ices.
Thank you, Worship. Announcements from Ward 1. The Innisfil Spartans had their annual pajama toss a week ago. They got over 90 pairs of jammies, and they have some more games coming up December 13th, 20th, and 21st. So go and support the Spartans. Special thank you to the Stroud volunteer firefighters for the annual tree lighting and Santa visit that happened there last Saturday. I also got the opportunity to attend the Innispirit holiday service on Sunday with Mayor Dolan in St. James in Stroud. That was a very nice service. Gets us in the Christmas mood by hearing all those songs and performances that were done there. And we have the annual tractor parade coming through Stroud as well. It's busy time in Stroud next Monday. So it's 7 o'clock. Look for the tractors to head through Stroud.
And you missed the big birthday party.
The big birthday party.
Lou Kelly.
Oh, yes. Yes, Mayor Dolan and I were invited to Lou Kelly's 75th birthday celebration as well on Sunday. So that was a long time resident of Innisfil, and it's good to spend time with him there.
Although his wife would tell you it was the 15th anniversary of his 60th birthday. Councillor Waters.
Thank you, Worship. Just a couple of quick announcements. Want to thank all the staff at Fire Station 1 for the tree lighting that we had last week. So there were lots of people there. Santa Claus showed up, and children got to make their wishes and pass them on secretly to Santa in terms of what they wanted. So it was a good night out. So I want to thank all the staff who were there helping with that. Also that Innisfil Lions Club has a fun card draw that they're selling tickets for. So if you're interested, contact the Innisfil Lions Club. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Saunders.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The Rotary train was canceled in Sandy Cove tonight due to the weather, but it will be out in full force tomorrow night and Friday night. On December 23rd, there's the Santa Walk with fire services in Big Bay Point. The map will be coming out soon. Along with the library board, the Hanukkah celebration will be at the library on the 15th, starting, I believe it's at 5. And with the Legion News, January 22nd is the Ugly Sweater Potluck Dinner with Secret Santa. And on January 1st, it's the President's Day New Year's Levy from 1 to 5.
Thank you. Councillor Drodge.
Thanks, Your Worship. December 11th is the 50th anniversary of Killarney Beach Public School. I'm excited to attend that. On December 13th, there's Elf on a Shelf visiting at the Tanger Mall from 12 to 3. And on December 14th, at the Guilford United Church at 1:30 p.m., they're doing caroling. So if you want to go and practice singing, it'd be a good place to go and do it. And on one other note, on this Saturday, I actually got to be Sanders' helper at Station 3. I just wanted to say, Councillor Ices, you've got a good bunch of residents there. They are really nice people, and I had a great time.
Awesome. Anyone else have any announcements they'd like to make? I'm not seeing any. I just wanted to say, please, if you can, get out and support our farmers market. It's the last one. It's tomorrow night at the Stroud Community Center. And this is our last council meeting for the year for 2025. So I want to wish everyone a happy holiday, a Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, whatever you're celebrating. I wish you a whole bunch of whatever makes you happy. And to all of our staff, I hope you get a nice break, get a chance to put your feet up. Director Bowman, I hope that you're not out shoveling snow on your birthday. And to everyone else, happy holidays, and we'll see you again on January the 14th, or in case of an emergency at the call of the mayor, but we're not going to have an emergency, hopefully. So thank you, everybody. And again, thank you to staff so much for staying at Town Council to this wee hour, and please drive safe on your way home. And the confirming bylaw is moved by Councillor Drodge and seconded by Councillor Richardson. That the meeting be adjourned at 10:29 p.m. All those in favor? That is carried. Thanks, everybody, for all of your engagement and passion